110, 111.
Okay, we got it.
Okay.
Woo!
All right, thank you everybody for your patience as we dealt with some technical difficulties. It's important for us that knowing that you can't be here in the room, we want to make sure you have a good experience with sound and video quality, making it the best we can. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Vice President Gasson, who's going to give you our closed session reports. Good.
Okay, thank you. So item 3B, with respect to every item of business to be discussed in closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54957 and Section 54957.6, conference with labor negotiations, Jonathan Ferrer, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources, Employees Organization, California School Employees Association, CSEA. The board gave direction. Item 3C, with respect to every item of business to be discussed in closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54957 and Section 54957.6, conference with labor negotiators, Jonathan Ferrer, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources, Employees Organization, Nevada Federation of Teachers, NFT. The board gave direction. Item 3D, with respect to every item of business to be discussed in closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54957 and Section 54957.6, conference with labor negotiators, Jonathan Ferrer, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources, Employees Organization, Management, unrepresented. The board gave direction. Item 3E, with respect to every item of business to be discussed in closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, conference with legal counsel, pending litigation, Coalition to Save San Marin versus Nevada Unified School District, Marin County Superior Court Case number CIV 1702295, is informational only. Item 3F, with respect to every item of business to be discussed in closed session pursuant to California Education Code Section 54956.8, conference with property negotiator, real property negotiations, price and term, Nevada Unified School District, North Bay Children's Center, parcel 1A, parcel 1B, parcel 2, C Street, Nevada, California, 94949, negotiator, Yancey Hawkins, Assistant Superintendent of Business and Operations. We gave, the board gave direction.
Thank you very much. The next item is item 7, approval of the agenda. This is us agreeing to the order of business for this evening. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented? I move for Trustee Mack moves, and I have a second from Trustee Aguilar. So all in favor of the order of business? I have 7-0 vote on student advisory vote. 1, Elizabeth, I see you. Oh, and there's Ava. Good
Oh,
evening.
we got 3.
And Jada. Hi. Thank you very much. Okay, the next item is public comment on the consent agenda. We're going to consider the consent agenda. Are there any comments? No comments from the public on the consent agenda. So we'll bring forward the approval of the consent agenda. Do we have some recusals? Debbie Butler.
15G, I will be recusing myself from.
15G.
Yes.
Okay, only. All that's it. Okay, you're good.
Yep.
So I need a motion to approve the consent agenda, not including 15G.
And we have an addendum.
Oh, and we have an addendum.
This is just a change in what was in the original.
So the item number 2, I think it is, item B, the
15B.
Yeah, 15B.
15B, which is the personnel addendum, and there's a revision at our desk. So make sure you understand what we're on for that. Okay, so I'm looking for a motion. Debbie, were you making the motion?
I think Maria made a motion.
So you moved the consent agenda, not including 15G, but including the personnel addendum.
Mhm.
Is that correct? Do I have a second? Trustee Julie Jacobson, seconds. All in favor? I see 7 in the room, and the student trustees, I see 3 in favor. Thank you very much. All 3 student trustees vote in favor. So now can we take up 15G? Debbie has to
Yep.
recuse herself, so I need a motion for 15G.
Mr. President, I'll move that we consent to item 15G.
Do I need it? That was trustee Nell, second. Trustee Mack, second. So all in favor of 15G? 6 in favor. Trustee Butler abstains, and student trustees?
3?
To move,
3?
3? Oh, I see 3. Yes, I do. My eyes aren't as good as they used to be. Okay, thank you very much. We are now moving into student presentations. Superintendent Costa, do you want to lead us on this?
Yeah, so we're lucky to have a student presentation from Olive Elementary School. A lot of time and energy went into this to capture some of the joy that our students are experiencing from being on campus. We have Principal Elizabeth Olnick here, and she'll kick us off.
Good evening, trustees and Superintendent Koska. I am so honored to be able to present our Olive presentation by Ms. Katie Kelly and Mr. Joe Smith, with the assistance of a wonderful student teacher, Ms. Sarah Monty. So I'm going to have Ms. Monty start the presentation on the first slide. This is the Olive NUSD presentation about why I like being at school by Ms. Kelly's kindergarten through second grade students and Mr. Smith's third through fifth grade classes. This year has been hard on all staff, students, and families, but especially hard for students that need extra support. Mr. Smith's and Ms. Kelly's classes have been able to attend school 5 days a week. We are so thankful for the ability to support these students. It affirms what it means to support our culture of caring, competency, and excellence. Every day I walk the campus and I see these students, and so now you get to hear their voice.
Awesome. Sorry, Miss Olenek.
You're good. You're good. It's now the student's voice.
Yes. Sorry, guys. Just making sure everybody can hear it. All right, here we go with Miss Kelly's class. First up, school is awesome. The students in room 13 at Olive. I like to do zoophonics at school. I like to play dice games at nap time.
To be back at school because I like to practice writing letters during OT. And back for my goal, I am like a boy for my friend Alisa.
I am happy to be at school because I get to type during OT. We love school. The students in room 19 at Olive. This is why we're happy to be back at school. I'm happy to be back in school because I like to learn how to read, do mini-math worksheets, and running during PE.
I am happy to be back in school because I get to read books from the school library. I'm happy to be back in school because I like to do my finger exercises during OT. I'm happy to be back at school because I get to learn about the skeleton system. That's SRA comprehension time.
Happy to be back at school because I get to play imaginary games with my friends at recess. I'm happy to be back at school because I like to go to speech, learn my multiplication facts, and exercise at PE.
Look at all the things we can do in person. It's great to be back at Olive.
Thank you. I want to give Mr. Smith and Ms. Kelly some time if they'd like to share anything personal about what it's like to be back in school. Mr. Smith?
First of all, I wanted to thank Sarah for creating the slideshow. This was all her. Thank you, Sarah. Number two, it's wonderful to be back in person. The kids are thriving, doing well, making progress to their goals. So we're happy to be back at Olive.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes, I'd like to say thank you to Sarah as well for helping us put that together. It was a lot of work on her part. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun being able to see the students again. A lot of mine weren't there that day. I do have 12 students, but it was great to see their faces and see how happy they are to be back, being able to engage with each other and have that social piece as well as the academics.
So thank you, trustees, for letting us share part of our students' days and activities with them. It's always a joy to share through a student's voice. Thank you.
So Principal Olnick, we wish we could be in person with you as well. It's great to see the enthusiasm of students on campus.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Principal Olnick? No, I think we're good. Thank you very much for spending your time with us this evening.
Thank you.
Our pleasure. Thank you so much.
So the next item is item 11, announcements from the board, superintendent, and student board members. And as always, we'll start with our student board members. Eva, you want to lead us off?
Yeah, sure, I can. It's good to see everybody. Glad to be back. So the main focus of this month is Black History Month. So we're doing weekly staff and student videos in the announcements, and we're doing daily posts on the Novato High Instagram of unsung Black heroes. And then at the end of the month, on the 24th, we're having a district-wide virtual assembly with all of the high schools, which will be really cool. We have a club fair coming up on the 11th. On Instagram, the videos of each club will be released, and the club list will be linked in the bio. We have a lot of surveys going around right now, a couple about homecoming, and we're thinking about doing something for homecoming with spirit days and a homecoming court later this semester. The yearbook wants a lot of MSA and athletic pictures and information. And we have a prom survey going around about what we can do with remaining funds that we have raised over the past 4 years. The Friends of Novato High 2021 are organizing a Share the Love, Spread the Love service campaign for seniors. And seniors can enter in a picture of them performing an act of service and submit it to the campaign, and they'll be entered to win 2021 swag. We also want to congratulate a couple of MSA classes. We had 20 creative writing students that earned top honors at the Regional Scholastic Art and Writing Awards, and 6 of them earned a gold key and will advance to the national level of the competition, becoming the largest MSA contingent to move up to the national level. 10 students also received silver keys and earned honorable mentions. And then this past weekend, our theater class went to Linnea Theater Festival, and they walked away with 7 awards. And within our school, the jazz choir is raising money by doing Palantines, which is like a singing telegram for Valentine's Day that's going to be played, and when they're bought, they're going to be played in front of people's classes. And then we're also, as a leadership class, we're working on our Valentines. Usually every year we write out every single student's name on a little heart and post it on the cafeteria wall. But this year we are going to do that. We're going to write the names on the hearts, and they're going to be placed outside of right near the bus loop at Novato High. And students can get out one at a time and grab a heart or grab their friends' hearts. But yeah, that is all I have for today.
Cool. So Jada, do you want to go next?
Hi.
Hi.
Bridges students started their hospitality management course on January 16th. 16 students are taking the course.
Jada, can you speak up a little bit? We're trying to increase the mic volume, but it's a little low. Thank you.
Bridges students started their hospitality management course on January 16th. 16 students are taking the course. This month, we are focusing on Black history, and every class has some kind of project or lesson. This Thursday and on February 25th, we have a special guest speaker, Amber Allen Pearson, who will be talking about marginalized people of color and how they've been treated in Marin and what we can do to help make changes.
Thank you.
Learning hubs are still taking place with 8 to 12 students on campus each day.
Her mic's failed. I can see her lips moving, but I can't hear her. We lost her.
Conversations were deep and engaging. We have our final Indigo workshop this Friday. It's been fun learning more about ourselves.
Thank you very much. Elizabeth, good evening.
Hey guys, good to see you all again. All right, so here's the San Marin update. So it is an amazing beginning to our Black History Month, and we are doing so each week by highlighting an accomplishment from an African American that we feel that is very inspiring in our announcements, from role models like Ruby Bridges to Amanda Gorman. And we've been providing teachers with discussion questions and protocols for conversations in class. We've also been sending out a TEDx youth talk about how Black history is American history for all staff to host a discussion with in class. And so the questions for these discussions are coming from our very own school equity team, led by the amazing Phoebe Smith, who not only helped us present this anti-racist resolution a few weeks ago, but is also working with me as well as Sophia Babler from Pleasant Valley on a project about allyship for Black History Month. Additionally, we're in the pursuit of planning homecoming activities, or what we can best do, such as student elections as well as a spirit week. And last but not least, in the magical world of STEM, they are wrapping up application season, and they are going to be sending more news to all of the applicants this week. That concludes my update.
Thank you very much. So we'll come to the board table here in the building. Maria Aguilar.
Good evening. I had the opportunity to listen in to the Region 3 CSBA webinar, we call it, and it was a chance to touch base and hear what other districts are doing, particularly around the questions of reopening schools and transitioning. It was an opportunity for us trustees to, or this group, for this group, it gives us the opportunity to get to know other trustees. And we talked about, there was a snapshot for this year's general who spoke of issues of reopening and collective bargaining, and it was interesting. Still lots of questions were asked, and it was an opportunity to get some answers, and we'll talk about some of it here with the reports. So grateful for that. I was able to listen into our first NUSD Special Education Voice Collaborative with Angela Chrysler, Director of Special Education. And lots of things going on, working on creating a special education roadmap to help new families of special education navigate the process. And the goal is to be able to create special education parent handbook. And so we're working on that, and everything's going to be in Spanish. There's also, we want to get some, we're going to get some feedback. So we're going to send out parent surveys at the end of it was sent out then the last week in February, but we're going to wait. Actually, sorry, the survey will be passed out after we get the youth truth and survey back, and then we're going to want feedback. And so then the members will review and provide feedback. So we want it by the 12th. If those of you families who are received the survey, please turn it in by the 12th. And it's a way to inspire and engage and empower our school district. And after the meeting, Angela and I spoke a little bit, and just so grateful for everything that they're doing. Special ed department is really working hard, and lots going on, and it's going to be exciting. So Mary Jane Burke sent a video out this morning with Dr. Talking about the process of the COVID, and it looks like things are moving along, and there's a little light at the end of the tunnel. I see it. So for those of you who haven't seen the video, check it out. And last is the JLAC will be tomorrow. For those of you trustees that haven't signed up, just go ahead and sign up. I don't think it's too late, is it, Derek? Okay. And it should be interesting, like every year, trying to get some new information. It's a way for us to advocate for our students in Sacramento. So thank you.
Trustee Jacobson.
Hello, thank you. I just want to start by saying it was so great to hear from our high schoolers, all the things they're doing academically, and then also trying to kind of recreate some of the social things that usually happen. It was nice to hear. I rounded out my elementary school tour at Loma, which was fantastic. I got to visit the 2 standalone middle schools, which was very informative. I met with, oh my God.
It happens.
It happened.
In what role?
Willard.
Willard.
Mike. I'm so sorry, Mike. To get up to speed on Measure G as I've joined the Oversight Committee. And the last couple of days, I've been sort of popping in on the legislative conference for the PTA, learning about the ways in which we can speak up at the state level for our students. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Trustee Nell.
Just want to remind the trustees and the superintendent that tomorrow we're having our annual joint action legislative committee trip to Sacramento. Of course, it's going to be virtual and held by Zoom. It begins at 8 a.m. and I hope you all got your invitations from Ken Lippy today. If not, I can forward those along to you. Just want to let everybody know that we have Brooks Allen, who's the Governor Newsom's Senior Policy Advisor on Public Education. He's also the Executive Director of the State Board of Education. So we're looking forward to questions and answers from Mr. Allen. We're also going to have speakers from the California School Board Business Office organization, as well as the California School Boards Association and the Administrative California School Board Administrators Association. So we're going to have all of the people who run public education speaking to us tomorrow morning, which will be hosted by our Frost and Associates, which who we work with up there in Sacramento. So hope you guys will attend. Also, we'll just remind everyone that we have two top priorities to focus on this year, and that is pension liability issue is the #1 issue, and special education and funding and some reform in that area as well. So look forward to seeing you guys online tomorrow.
Thank you, sir. Trustee Mack.
I'd like to thank Derek for taking the charge on JLAC, the Joint Legislation Action Committee. In years past, it's been a great opportunity for us to not only talk with the various CSBA folks and school folks, but also get right in the face of our local state legislators, Mr. Levine and Mr. McGuire, and been successful. Attended the public health schools update last Monday. It was the beginning, the kind of first crack in the door, if you will, the light coming through. Got a hint that red is coming. And then today, red is coming. So I know that sounds strange, but red is a good thing for all of us. It means that our plan can move. So that's very good news. I'm hoping we can see that red status hit sooner rather than later. As soon as it does, as we all know, our clock starts ticking and we start doing things. So looking forward to that.
Krista Butler.
Since our last board meeting, I've attended the Model the Way Awards for January, where we honor 3 or 4 employees of our district, which is, again, as I always say, is just, I enjoy really doing that all the time. The CSBA, as Trustee Aguila spoke to, California School Boards Association held their Region 3 meeting, and Region 3 is the counties of Solano, Marin, Sonoma, and Napa make up Region 3. And so again, it was all of trustees around each of those regions and districts that are in those regions, getting an update on the budget. And then the monthly Marin County Public Health and MCOE meeting that is held, the monthly update. I listened to that. And then North Marin Council PTA this last Friday, which is all of our PTA presidents in our district come together once a month. And let me just say, that's one of the more amazing groups that we have here in this district. And we should be so proud of our PTA presidents continually trying to, work with their parent community and do all the things that they normally do. Even during this COVID era, pandemic era, they're still trying to bring all of the, Authors Day, book fair, auction. They're trying to figure that out and trying to build community within their schools. And they're doing an amazing job. So continue to please support your PTAs. If you're not a member, please become a PTA member. Even if you don't even have kids at the schools, you can still join a PTA of your local school. Also, as Trustee Jacobson spoke to, California PTA has their legislative conference, and I did it last year. Even as a board member, I still like doing it. And so I'm listening to that today, yesterday, and today. And one of their main priority is equity, building equity. So that's been very informative. And tomorrow, as we've heard, is our legislative day with JLAC. So I will be doing that.
Trustee Gasson.
So very similar to everyone. Actually, it was interesting. I had forgotten a couple things I did. It seems like everything just is such a blur these days. I actually have never been to a CSBA meeting before, and a membership meeting, and I got a lot out of that. And I assume normally they're in public,
that was the first one. They haven't really done those before,
really?
Because now they have that public information person for each
okay.
region.
Okay, makes me feel better.
So she's bringing everybody together, which is nice.
Okay, yeah, I liked it a lot, especially when you can do it from home and that. But so that was really interesting. CAPTA legislative convention. Today was the second day. So yesterday and today, great speakers. Brooks Allen was actually one of the speakers. I thought all of them did a really great job providing information. One of the things that I got out of it that I was not familiar with was the idea of a community schooling, which seems to be the thing that's coming from our state, looking at how do we do community schooling. There's a whole graphic that I found on exactly what that means. So I was interested to learn about that. The special education meeting that Trustee Aguila mentioned, they have a new group that they've done, which I thought was cool. They're calling it SED eVoice, which stands for Everyone's Voice, Offering Information and Communication in Education. the collaboration. And the individuals that attended were some staff from the district office, as well as the two new representatives that I mentioned last time that are from the North Marin Council PTA and SEAC. And then the two of us attended as well. So I'm very excited about what's going on in our SPED team. And we have another meeting, I think, Thursday. I also, as a side note, even though this isn't really school related, I decided to join the League of Women Voters. And I'm only bringing this up because it turns out they actually have an educational and library committee. And so my first meeting was this week, and they actually voted on that being one of the things that they're sending to the state as a priority. There's a lot of recognition for the harm, unintentional harm done by this whole COVID and period of not being in school, the libraries, the lack of ability to get books for kids. So it was one of the 3 priorities that the group decided would be sent to the state for them to vote on deciding what their priorities would be for the year. So anyway, I think I can contribute a lot to that. And tomorrow is our Partial Tax Oversight Committee meeting, which is at 6 p.m. So I plan on being there, as well as the JLAC.
Great, thank you. Our participation in the community beyond school direct activity is just really important. I think each one of us finds something of interest. I would like to particularly thank Trustee Nell for focusing on the JLAC activity. There are big school districts in the state of California, LA, Unified, and San Francisco and Sacramento that sway a lot in terms of public politics. Marin County is a small, in terms of population, county, but all 23 school districts come together and put together a program where we actually go up and talk to the legislatures with the intention of making sure laws adopted at the state level are reasonable and benefit Marin County. And in this particular year, Trustee Nell's taken the lead for our district, and I want to thank him for making sure that the interests of Novato and Marin are well represented in Sacramento. So, sir, thank you very much. With that, Trustee Koska, or Superintendent Koska, I demoted you.
Oh no, that's a big promotion. Big promotion. So I'm really excited that this is African American History Month or Black History Month, and I'm really proud of the efforts that I've seen from our schools to make sure that we're recognizing that and honoring the rich history in America as a result of the contributions of our Black community members, past and present. We're looking forward to finding the right ways to share that information with the community through different social media posts and other ways. So just know that you'll be seeing some of that. And I believe that even one of our student board members, Elizabeth Deruvo, is working on a video over at Pleasant Valley, or working on something over at Pleasant Valley. So looking forward to seeing that. Also, we have a Not in Our Town speaker series that's going to be coming up. There's going to be 4 different events between February 11th and March 25th. Very proud to say that our NUSD Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, Jonathan Ferrer, is going to be one of the featured speakers. But we're also going to have, a lot of our Novato High School students of color and NUSD young adults who have recently graduated that will also be sharing their experiences. And so I really encourage you to keep your eye out for it. That's the Not in Our Town speaker series, starting February 11th. That's all. Thank you,
sir. So the next item is non-agenda public comment. Later in the agenda, under discussion action, we're going to have an annual audit report, and immediately after that, at 13B, we're going to have recommendations for authority to revise, return flexible in-person learning. And so for that topic, I will accept public comment then for the topic of reopening school. So this item that we're before us now is for comments that are not around that item. And so we have a couple of speakers, a few speakers, but I expect more people will want to comment about the later item when that's up. So for now, I'll take non-agenda public comment. And Jennifer, would you like to open the mic for the first? We're technically a little slow here, so everybody gets their turn. So.
Hey there, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Jack PW. I am a San Anselmo resident and I work at Brandeis Marin Day School in San Rafael as a fourth grade teacher's assistant. So it's awesome to hear about some of the efforts that you guys are doing during Black History Month. I'd love to, see how we can connect on that too, and also talk about how ways that Black History Month is relevant outside of just February too. So I love to see that the schools around us and up in Novato are leaning into that conversation as well. I'm calling tonight to urge you guys to continue investigating and supporting more conversation, specifically from students around school resource officers in our schools. I think that that's a conversation that's complicated, and there's, as we know, lots of things to be said about it. But I would encourage us to keep leaning into those conversations as we do also continue to lean into conversations regarding kind of racial justice in our schools and the experience of specifically our Black, Indigenous students of color. I think that school resource officers and the issue of how some students feel about it is also closely related to restorative justice. And so I'm happy to hear that there are positions on Novato schools regarding restorative justice, and I would also encourage you guys to continue to lean into that. Youth Transforming Justice is a great program down in San Rafael, run by Don Carney, as I'm sure some of you know, and I just hope that they can be an asset to you as well. They've been an asset as a Brandeis Marin educator. They're involved in some of us with attending trainings and going to restorative practice trainings. I would encourage teachers to lean into that work in Novato School District, and as I am encouraging them in San Rafael. And I think also because I'm on the Racial Justice Task Force in TAM District, any kind of conversation that can be started among administrators cross district about these issues, about school resource officers, about the experiences of students of color, I think is a good conversation to lean into. So I would encourage you all to be proactive in reaching out. I know that Karen Hatton over at TAM District is in the process of reaching out to San Rafael administrators. And of course, San Rafael School District is a little bit different because they've chosen to discontinue their relationship somewhat with school resource officers. But I encourage you to lean into your fellow administrators across district, because I think that this is an issue that's really relevant to the community today, and it will be relevant to you all as you deal with the transitions. And thank you for your time today. I hope you can keep considering how to remove school resource officers, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. Just a reminder, we're going to follow the 3-minute time limit for each speaker. So next, I believe we have 2 more speakers.
Hello.
Hi. Hello. Came and went.
That was a short presentation.
Came and went. Somebody pushed the wrong button and disconnected themselves, I think.
No, hello. Can you hear me?
Hi, yay.
Hi. My name is Lori Johnson and I live in Novato, and I'm here to ask you to eliminate SROs in Novato high schools. Schools are meant to foster the health and safety of students, creating a sense of belonging and security. As a community, we should be investing in what we know works. Considering the inadequate funding already plaguing our schools, money used for SROs could be diverted to hiring mental health professionals, especially those that are bilingual, that would provide needed support to students in crisis. The grant the NUSD is using to pay for one SRO is not a prevention effort, but a punitive one. I don't believe that having SROs on campuses is an evidence-based program geared towards education and prevention of tobacco use and vaping that the grant requires. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Lori. Jennifer, thank you. We're standing by for the next speaker.
Hello, this is Heidi Merchant. I am the parent of a San Marin High School sophomore. First, I wanted to say thank you to the students for speaking tonight, Eva, Jada, and Elizabeth. Love your updates and your civic engagement, and you're the future and the ones we've been waiting for, and we're proud of you. I wanted to talk about the upcoming decision on SROs and remind us of our district's commitment to the equity imperative and also the racial equity resolution. Both of these commitments to equity are designed to change systems so that every student has what they need to reach their full potential. Research shows that police on campus treat Black, Indigenous, and students of color like suspects, which prevents them from feeling safe, feeling like they belong, and from having what they need to reach their full potential. Cops on campus reinforce the school to prison pipeline and inequities in educational outcomes. We must change these systems. Please say no to the status quo and be willing to say no to funding that's not in alignment with our values. Please acknowledge that this decision should center the students and families most impacted by policing at school. And please show, as we know you do, that you really care about every student by removing the cops and replacing them with restorative justice practitioners and counselors, and requiring that all school staff attend anti-racist and trauma-informed practice training, and figure out what they're going to do in situations where they used to call the police, do something that's more supportive to help the kiddos. Let's continue to make strides to improve our schools for everyone, because the rising tide raises all ships. Let's make history for Black History Month by removing cops from schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi.
If I could interrupt really quickly.
Go ahead. Yes, sir.
As we move through the comments for different agenda items, we need to be able to manage the flow of that in the chat bar. So any speaker who wants to speak to a certain topic needs to inform us accurately of the topic that they want to speak to, so we make sure that we hear your voice on the correct topic. So that's just something for our community out there. And so, if we don't know what topic you want to speak to, it's going to be hard for us to make sure we hear your voice, and it's critical to us that we hear your voice. So just please help us out there. And with that, we'll carry on.
We have one more open topic speaker. And this will be the last speaker for public open con.
Board, can you hear me okay?
Yes, George.
Thank you, board members. I want to speak to the San Marin electronic bulletin board that faces the street there at the high school. And I wanted to object to a message that is constantly being on that board, which is Black Lives Matter. The message is purely racist. It's wrong on any level. The group represents looting and rioting and burning churches and burning police stations, assaulting police officers. And if you look back to last summer, it was a summer of shame because of Black Lives Matter. They marched down the streets and said, what do we want? Dead cops. When do we want them? Now. Remember? How dare the school board use a school billboard, electronic billboard, to promote a hate group that promotes racial division, defunding the police, destroying the traditional family structure. Black Lives Matter is a violent, Marxist, domestic terrorist group. Look it up. Look at their mission statement. Look at the founders. Do the homework on it. What are we going to see next on the bulletin board? The Ku Klux Klan? We put you folks into office and we can throw you out of office. There's plenty of people in this town that are upset about that bulletin board and what garbage is being put on it. The public demands an apology, and someone needs to resign over this constant racism on that electronic board. To promote Black Lives Matter on a high school bulletin board on a public street is nothing less than child abuse. I say take it down before the taxpayers take it down. And if you want to promote domestic terrorism, do it on your own property. Don't pollute our public schools with your white guilt and your divisive politics. Black Lives Matter is an insult to both blacks, especially blacks, and whites. Black Lives Matter is an affront to a civilized society. Stop embarrassing our students and we parents with this type of stupidity. Thank you.
Thank you, George. That'll be our last speaker for open time. We're now moving to discussion action, and I'm going to remind everybody the discussion action item A, which we're going to take up first, is the annual audit report, which our CFO will speak to, and then immediately after that, item B will be a recommendation for authority to revise return to flexibility and in-person learning plan that our superintendent will lead us on. So we're going to do item A, acceptance of the annual audit report. Is Yancy going to lead this? Chris, you going to lead?
So we'll turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Hawkins.
Thank you, President Millerick. Just a quick introductions. I have Sarah Palafox from Christie White and Associates. Hi, Sarah. So every year we complete our audit and bring it to the board around this time frame. And so this is the audit report for the year ended June 30th, 2020. And just before I turn it over to Sarah, while I would love to take all the credit for this, I just want to thank Nancy Walker and her team for doing all the heavy lifting on this. I think we all know where the work gets done over on this side of the house. So with that, I'll turn it over to Sarah.
Great.
Thank
you so much for having me here this evening to present the audit report for the year ended June 30, 2020 for Novato Unified School District. As I go through what I'll be presenting today, I will highlight a few pages. If you'd like to follow along, feel free to do so. So I first wanted to start with the responsibility of the auditor when it comes to the audit report. Our responsibility is to issue an opinion as to the fair presentation of the financial statements. And in doing so, we issue our audit opinion. And the audit opinion can be found on page 1 of the audit report. And you'll see at the very end of page 1 is our opinion paragraph. And in summary, it states, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the governmental activities, the business type activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of Novato Unified School District as of June 30, 2020. And in short, that is an unmodified opinion that we are issuing over the financial statements, and that is the best opinion that can be issued. I'll next like to go to towards the end of the audit report is page 79. This is our summary of auditor's results. And you'll see at the top, what I just mentioned was the financial statement opinion being an unmodified opinion. We also did not note any material weaknesses nor any significant deficiencies, and no non-compliance material to the financial statements was noted. The other opinions that we issue for the district are over federal awards as well as state awards. For federal awards, we tested the special education cluster, and we issued an unmodified opinion over federal awards. We noted no material weaknesses nor any significant deficiencies. And over state awards, we again issued an unmodified opinion with no material weaknesses nor any significant deficiencies noted. On the following pages, starting with page 80, would be the audit findings. And you'll note that there were no audit findings for the year ended June 30, 2020. So page 80 is where we would present any financial statement findings, which there were none. On page 81 would be where any federal award findings would be noted, and there were none as well. And lastly, on page 82 would be where any state award findings would be noted, and there were none for June 30, 2020. And on the last page of the audit report, if there were prior year audit findings, it is our responsibility to, again, review and test the areas where a finding was noted. And we are required to note if there were if the district corrected any prior year findings and if their corrective action plan was implemented. And you'll see on page 83, there were no audit findings for last year, for the year ended June 30, 2019. And to conclude my presentation, I would just like to extend my gratitude to the district and all of the staff members that we worked with during the audit. This being a very unique audit process, we conducted our audit in a remote setting, which did not in any way limit the procedures that that the district underwent. We utilized a secure client portal where the district was able to provide all of our requests, and all of the district staff members were very helpful in meeting those requests in a timely fashion. And we really appreciate that to Yancey, Nancy, and all of the staff members that we worked with at the district. We're very thankful for your ongoing transparency and cooperation in the audit process, especially in the current environment that we conducted our audit. So thank you very much, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
So, well, Nancy, should I ask for board questions?
Yeah, I think that's a great place to go.
Any questions from board members?
No, happy that we don't have any findings.
No, I think everybody's
2
just,
years in a row.
thrilled. So Sarah, thank you very much for the work. I know working remote is made it more challenging, not less challenging. It's more for everybody. But here we have an audit report that last year there were no findings for you to review, and at the end of this year we again have no findings for the auditor that's going to come after this. Thank you very much for all the hard work and making sure that we're running a clean ship and things are properly stated and the community can rely on the documents that our organization provides. So I'm going to ask Trustee Jacobson. Oh, she has some comments.
Hi. I just wanted to share that as financials are my area of professional expertise, I guess I would say, I reviewed this document. It was extremely thorough. The approach the auditors take is great. And really, our actual financials are extremely clean, well documented, and it's great to see them so well done. Thank you.
Trustee Gaston?
I just want to acknowledge the work of the staff. Thank you, guys, for staying on top of everything and everything that you guys do for us.
Good. We're good. So I think this is a action.
Mr. President?
Yes, sir. Trustee,
I don't have a question. I appreciate the work that was done, and I'm proud of Yancey and his department for having such a clean audit. But I thought it might be important to mention these times where facts seem to be a somewhat difficult and wavering issue with so many people, that the very fact that we have an independent audit of our budget, I think, helps us all in whatever subjects that we're addressing or talking about, that we can go to the depth of the way that we are keeping the books and how we're keeping the books and how we're spending the money and where the money is coming from is really not in question going forward. So whether we're talking about the total pension liability numbers and how they're calculated, or pick your poison on any particular issue around how money is spent, I'm glad to have such a clean audit and a set of facts that we can make decisions around. So appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Any other comments? I need a motion to accept the audit. Trustee Butler moves. So moved.
I'll second.
Seconded by Trustee Aguirre. So I'll ask the student board members as well for an advisory vote. So all in favor of accepting the audit report. So I see 7 members at the board table. I see Elizabeth, and I don't see Jada voting. I can't. Oh, I see her hand. There it is. Oops, it's hiding behind her name tag.
Is Eva still on?
And is Eva with us?
Yep.
Yep, there she is. Okay, we got all 3. Thank you very much.
Hey, Ross, this is Yancey's last board meeting, I think.
Uh-oh. Who let him?
This is his last board report, I believe. Is he still on? I don't know if he's still on.
Yancey?
I am still on, and as much as you would like to get rid of me, I will be back for the March 2nd.
Good. Okay.
Because my items are done there. So hopefully you will forget between now and then that we had this conversation.
Yeah.
So Sarah, the good news is you have the same great team to work with. The bad news is the leader of the team is not going to be with us starting in March. So we will miss him greatly. As you can see, his work has been just top flight. His whole department's been top flight. And we get to talk about him one more time March 2nd. That's great. I love to talk about him. It's good. It's good.
Yeah, it's been great working with Yancey, and we wish him the best of luck. And we look forward to working with the rest of the Novato team again next year.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for the presentation. We really appreciate the hard work and you're coming to us tonight to make this presentation. So we're going to move to the next item. The next item is the recommendation for authority to revise return to flexible in-person planning. And Superintendent Costco, who is now sitting in his office so we can present the slide deck, is going to lead us off. I see him online. Superintendent Costco, do you want to take this item?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Give me a second while I get on to our presentation. Thank you, everybody. I know we probably just lost most of our crowd after the annual audit. I know that's what everybody's here for, as always. Okay, well, maybe not. Everybody that's here, thank you for spending your time with us tonight, earlier this afternoon, in front of the building, around the building. Appreciate your advocacy. I'm going to walk the board through a recommendation to revise our return to flexible in-person learning plan. We're going to do a little bit of history, talk a little bit about where we are, how we got there, etc. Outline a plan, and then discuss what other options we may have available to us this evening. So no big secret. On March 13th, 2020, we shifted to distance learning. This was something that happened across our county. It was a big challenge for our students, our staff, our families. Very soon thereafter, we committed to bringing our students back when we felt like it was safe to do so and following guidance from our public health agencies. Also, around March or early April, we decided to open up one of the first pop-up childcare centers for essential workers, particularly those in medical and first responder fields. Soon thereafter, we were one of the first districts in the county to bring back our special day classes in partnership with the Marin County Office of Education. And those were some baby steps that we took last year to see what we could do around bringing kids back to campus. Things worked very well. And then in September of 2020, we finally started to get some guidance from the state of California and from Marin County that coalesced into the documents, which allowed us to design a reentry plan. We brought that plan to the board on October 6th. In the meantime, we worked with each of our sites to develop their school site-specific protection plans, the 30-point plans called the SSSPPs. As shared, the board approved a reentry plan on October 6th. And the goal of that plan was to have all of our students back into hybrid learning by January 11th in 5 different phases. And the phases you can see here started in October 26th with our students that were considered most vulnerable based on the research, least likely to be able to access learning remotely at the highest levels. So we started with our youngest kids, our elementary special day classes, our social cognition classes, our early intervention program, which is our preschool special education program, our transition kindergarten, and our kindergartners. A couple of weeks later, we brought back our first and second grade students into hybrid learning. After 2 weeks and the Thanksgiving break, we were able to bring back our 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, or 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th graders. So that was the first group of students on our middle school campuses. And then we were prepared to bring back our 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th graders after the winter break on January 4th. Unfortunately, between November 30th and January 4th, Marin County saw a significant spike in COVID cases initially following Halloween, but then also as a result of what happened over winter break. And we went into the purple tier, and we have not yet come out of the purple tier. That paused our reentry plan for 7th through 12th graders. I won't read that to you, but pretty much what our reentry plan, which was based on the guidance at the time on October 6th, said was that if Marin County moved into the purple tier, we would be forced to pause our plan until we were out of the purple tier for 2 weeks. As mentioned, we were notified that we were moving into the purple tier, and the plan was paused. Since then, there's been a couple of areas where the state has given us revised guidance as it pertains to bringing students back onto campus. And so I'm going to talk about those two changes, the two significant changes now. Change 1 allows for schools that were previously open. So that would be like our middle schools. We had our 6th graders on campus. We did not have our 7th and 8th graders on campus. It allows us to continue to bring back students if those schools were open before we moved into the purple tier. The other change that has arisen is a reduction. Let me move to change 1. So change 2 adjusts the amount of time that needs to pass between the county exiting the purple tier and when students can be brought back to the campus when they move to the red tier. As I mentioned, previous guidance was we needed to wait 2 weeks. That's what shows up in our reentry plan. Additionally, I'm sorry, so the new guidance says that we only need to be out of the purple tier and into the red tier for 5 days before we can bring students back to what was a previously closed campus. So on the topic of this, we've talked a lot through the months about the 14 days. There were 2 reasons why we wanted to stick with that 14-day time period. One of them was because it was what was legally required. The other one was because we wanted to make sure that families had time to adjust for different daycare situations, child coverage situations, etc. So now we've got these changes. We have a reentry plan. They are not aligned with one another. And so what staff is recommending that we do is that we reconsider our reentry plan and that you allow us to follow the revised guidelines. As the reentry plan is a board approved plan, we didn't feel comfortable coming today and telling you we think you should do a revised plan. So we're asking that you give us authority to explore changes to the plan. And if that is the route that you want to take, we could bring those changes back on March 2nd of 2021. Of course, the board also has the authority to make changes to their plan this evening. And so if that is of interest to the board, I'm happy to talk through some pros and cons of some different ideas that could come up, or even make an altered recommendation to the board if that was of interest to the board. A couple other things that have come up that I want to mention before we move towards the board asking discussions and questions. We watched a video from Dr. Willis yesterday, a 4-minute recorded video that he put out that mentioned that he anticipates, and he never knows, he's not the decider, but he anticipates that Marin County would be moving into the red tier in the next few days. I don't know exactly what to make of that. Those changes typically happen on Tuesdays, but sometimes they have happened on other days. So, it could be very possible that we are looking at moving into the red tier, or that could not happen. I don't want to get into the game of guessing what might happen there. And so with that, I open it up to discussion and board questions.
Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, let me get an estimate. Okay, so we have some online questions or comments that the community wants to make. And then, so with the board's consent, here's what I'd like to do. We have 20 minutes of comment. We have right now 13 speakers queued up. At 3 minutes each, that's whatever that is, 45 minutes by the time you're said and done. So that's where we are in that. We also, there'll be comments, I'm sure, amongst us. We're going to discuss this at length. And we have student trustees who have an opinion about this because this directly affects their life. So what I would like to do is take the comments in public and then come back and then start with the student trustees and then to the board for the conversation. So does that process work for you guys? And
You're saying total questions for 20 minutes? then?
well, that's what I want you guys to tell me. I don't want to.
I would encourage our speakers to, if they hear the same opinion that they're going to speak to not speak and allow the next person to speak.
So do we want to
So that
cut
we
it
can
off
get
at
in more
20 or do we
speakers.
want to
I would
say?
extend it a little bit. I would go.
How about do 2 minutes times 13, 26? Is it 13?
So yeah, there was 13 people queued who had signed up as we started this item. So if we do
And
2
then-
minutes each,
Yeah, you could always do that, shorten the time, and we can get in more people to speak
okay.
and go over the 20 minutes slightly if we have to.
Okay, so we'll do 13 speakers at 2 minutes each. Is that what we agree to?
Yeah, I mean, please speak if you guys don't agree, but
I mean, that takes us to 26 minutes. That's more than 20. It's less than 30.
I mean, this is a topic that's important to this
Yeah, no,
community, and the more we can get comment in,
Okay.
I think.
So I'm going to, then the instructions for the speakers are, you get 2 minutes to speak, not 3. So review your comments. And we're going to take the 13 speakers who were signed up at the beginning of this, and then we're not going to take speakers after that. Are we still at 13?
On the 14th, but they haven't answered what they want to speak on yet.
Okay, so we're at 13. So you got the first 13, and that's who we'll hear from.
And we don't have the clock because that's set for 3 minutes. I'm going to be doing it on timer. So I'll watch.
Okay, so we have a timer that, so if you watch so you're at 2 minutes, not 3 minutes, and I will be pretty aggressive in cutting you off at 2 minutes. So,
Would it help to still run the clock, but just acknowledge that we've hit the 2 minute mark?
it's
I don't
a
know if
technical question.
people sees that or not.
Here's what, can I make a recommendation?
Yes, sir.
So I would recommend that we run the clock and we let people know that when they're at the 1 minute mark, they're done. So at least they can track their time. It's hard to speak and track your time if you're not used to doing that a lot.
Okay, so we're going to run.
If this is what we're going to do, let's stop spending time talking about what we're going to do and let's just tell people we got 2 minutes and cut them loose.
Okay, so.
Does Elizabeth not want to go first?
No, Elizabeth, I think you wanted to be the first board speaker. Is that correct? Or did you want to hear public comment first?
That sounds good. Yeah, I'd love to hear public comment.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you. So we'll take public comment. Jennifer, do you want to queue up the speakers and we'll track 13 of them? And if you guys hear somebody with your same point of view, the more time if you can just say, I agree with so-and-so and move on, that'd be great. But I think everybody here's done an awful lot of reading over the last 2 weeks. Okay.
Okay, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak tonight.
Thank you.
We were an NUSD family from 2015 to 2020. Those of you in the community whose children went to school with mine know that I was very involved. I was a proponent of NUSD and that I gave my time and my money to our schools, both the one that my children attended and the one where I worked. We love the NUSD teachers and staff. But my kids are no longer in NUSD because of the district's failure to reopen campuses and get kids back to in-person learning. The resistance of the teachers union's leadership to full reopening has created a mental health crisis for our kids and will eventually cause the loss of jobs for many teachers due to the hemorrhage of families to alternative spaces. This is also a women's rights crisis, as the closure of school campuses has involuntarily driven many women from the workforce. Virtual learning is a false alternative to real in-person learning and teaching. It's okay in a temporary crisis, But this has gone on for too long, and it's a failure to our kids in the long term. Additionally, hybrid models are proven to be less safe and are an equally less effective way to teach and learn. The science supports fully reopening our campuses. My kids now attend a private school in Southern Marin. Our preschool through 8th grade campus has been open since August of last year, with 1 COVID case and 0 spread. As much as I loved being a part of our local NUSD school community, I don't know if we'll ever be able to come back at this point. I'm deeply concerned that the constant continued focus is on obstacles rather than where the focus needs to be in order to make reopening happen, with all of the adults in the community devoted to getting the kids back to campus. Thank you.
Okay, Jan, thank you. And I'm not very good at keeping track of time, so I'll try better. Thank you. We're going to the next speaker.
Okay, am I up? So I just want to start by saying, as a Pleasant Valley family, we are extremely supportive and loving our teachers and all of the efforts that they have made to make distance learning accessible to our kids. My huge point here tonight is that this is truly an equity issue. When we look at families that have 2 working parents in the home, there are limited options in regards to how we can support our students to actively engage in their educations. One, which Jen spoke to, is we can decide to send our children to private school. That is obviously, a choice that some families can and some families cannot make. 2, we can have a family member quit their job. And many of the women in the workforce that I relate with have had that instance where they have had to leave their job in order to support their child's education. The third choice is that the child is completely unsupported throughout 3 to 5 school days per week. And finally, some of us are working nights and weekends in order to make it all happen. The question I ask to the board is, who has that privilege to make that decision, to choose private school, to choose to leave their job? And where do we leave those families that do not have that privilege? And how do we support those families? How do we protect them? My plug is always looking at not just my children, but the children that are struggling, our special education students. How do we maintain services that are
10 seconds left.
That are not just based on in-person hours, but based on their individual need? Thank you.
Thank you very much for honoring the 2 minutes. So this is a little tricky. I know some of you have practiced. Third speaker.
Hello, my name is Amy Thompson, and I am, sorry, my husband's watching right next to me, as well as just completely agreeing with both Colleen and Jen, who have spoken right before me, on really wanting to push for full in-person school happening as soon as possible for my son, for the reasons of, both, we need to go back to school. I would love to go back to work full-time. That would be wonderful. And I know that I'm not the only one, but also just that my son is lonely. He's sad. He misses school more than anything else. And he's an only child. So a 10-year-old boy being alone by himself, Zoom is not school. And no matter how much he loves his teachers and he loves his friends, it's not the same as being in person with other kids around. And honestly, he's suffering because of it and doesn't need to. The CDC has said children are safer back in schools now for a myriad of reasons. And I would just like to know why that's not really happening, why the plan is not in place for them to get back as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Amy.
You want to come on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thomas?
Yes, hi. When my kids joined Lee Sutton 4 years ago, I was very happy and they both thrived. Both my wife and I were involved volunteering and fundraising. We love our teachers and value their hard work. Now, almost a year into the shutdown, people are at a breaking point. Last spring, I encouraged patience. I'm very well aware of the complexity of reopening schools safely, but it feels like both Nevada Unified School District and the NFT are consistently behind the other districts in Marin as far as having a viable reopening plan. It feels like our kids are being used as a bargaining chip to address issues that existed before COVID. The rigidity of the people that are supposed to have our children's well-being at heart is extremely disappointing. My 8th grader has had no in-person interaction with his school for almost a year. The lack of transparency and clear information coming from the board and teachers union is maddening. What we are left with is people, including teachers, posting on social media with all kinds of conjecture of what the future will look like. In the fall, my wife was advocating for finding a way to get our kids into private school. Once again, I encouraged patience and said that things were temporary and that the powers that be would do everything in their power to get the schools open. I can tell you that I've lost faith, and I've had to eat a lot of crow for not going along with my wife's desire to leave the Nevada Unified School District. I believe that one of the hallmarks of a developed country is a strong public school system. What I see is families that have the resources leaving our public schools. This is very concerning because of the implications of furthering the disparities that already plague our society. I am also very concerned about the political fallout of keeping our schools closed. Our middle and high school students are at a critical stage of their development academically and socially. We must do better to serve these kids. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Thank you for respecting the time. I appreciate your focus.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
We can.
Great. Hi, so my name is Katie Lynch. Thanks so much for giving me time to speak. We are a Rancho family. We're union supported, and we will forever be public here in Novato. And I wanted to start by saying just how grateful I am for the steps that the board and the district have taken thus far. I've just been really impressed with the communication. I wanted to share my support for returning to 5-day learning as soon as possible. I just wanted to highlight something our public health officer, Matt Willis, said yesterday in his video. He said, when done right, in-person school actually protects against virus transmission compared to the alternative, which I think is a really important statement considering the misinformation that's kind of being shared everywhere. The vocal minority that keeps our schools closed, despite data that in-person schooling can be done safely, doesn't really have evidence to support their position and is doing our children a tremendous disservice. It's clear that the kids are suffering. There's prolonged social isolation, low access to interactive learning, and attentional challenges that accompany tech-based schooling. And this will have devastating effects that we're already seeing in our community. We don't have any evidence that remote schooling can be effective for young kids, and the equity gap is widening. So I really want to speak in support, as others have, against for returning our students to school as soon as possible. When we ignore the ramifications of keeping them home, we ignore their well-being, and we also ignore the science that we purport to teach them. So thanks so much. I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Katie, very much.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dashiell Thompson, and thanks for giving me an opportunity to speak tonight. And first, I want to thank everybody who shared comments already. The last few speakers, I pretty much in agreement with almost everything that was stated. I'll try to keep this brief, but I just want to say that our kids are suffering. I am extremely concerned that we still didn't hear anything tonight about when we're going to come back to school full time. This idea that hybrid learning is a thing. This isn't school. Right now, our kids in school maybe 2 days a week, and that's it. The other 3 days don't really count. Now, I can say we're very fortunate. We love the teacher that we have this year, to be fair. I want to make that clear. And we have a good teacher that's really doing his best. But this is not good. And we seem to be, when we talk about safety in schools, we seem to be ignoring the danger of not having our kids in schools, and not just the danger that, in the sense that they're actually more likely to catch COVID outside of school than in school, is what the science tells us, but also the danger to their mental health and development. And I just also want to echo the fact that I agree this is definitely a women's rights issue as well. It's easy and convenient for our society to let the kids stay home and sort of let the women disproportionately take care of it. And I think this is fucking absurd. I think it's absurd. If men were the ones who had the responsibility to stay home with the kids, this would not have drug on this long. And I'm 100% sure of that. There are huge equity gaps in society, and they're getting worse during COVID. Women are getting the worst of it. People of color are getting the worst of it. And this issue with our school is just one infuriating microcosm of that. And it needs to change. It needs to change. Whoever's at fault, something different needs to happen. If it's the board that's in the way, if it's the teachers union that's in the way, it needs to shift. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks, Joshua. I'm glad everybody's paying attention to the time. Thanks. It's and reflecting on the person that spoke before and when that's the same information. Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. My name is Katie Stafford, and I have 3 children in NUSD. Back in January, a group of doctors from the Bay Area signed a joint letter calling on California schools to reopen in-person learning for all. Tonight, I'd like to reference part of their letter to persuade you to do the right thing by our kids. I'd like to point out that in addition to showing the negative impact school closures has on kids overall, these doctors frequently highlight the gross inequities in access and support that children from more vulnerable families are susceptible to as a result of remote learning. The doctors wrote, long-term school closures have a detrimental, measurable impact on children and adolescents, and that families with limited financial means are disproportionately impacted. Educational inequities have the potential to translate into a lifelong barrier and a staggering number of life years lost. In Novato, we have already seen over 400 students leave the district, and I would estimate there are hundreds more with one foot out the door. We know how this story goes. Kids leave, funding goes down, schools close, teachers are out of work. It plagues our entire community. Many have left for private schools where classes are open, and because they can afford to. Many others will be left behind, held hostage to an underfunded, understaffed, broken school system. And let's not forget about mental health. The CDC reported that pediatric emergency visits due to mental health issues in 2020 increased by 24% among children ages 5 to 11, and by 31% for children ages 12 to 17 from the year before. And since last March, we have learned that young children are not the primary drivers of COVID-19 transmission and are generally not at risk of severe health consequences from the virus. And as Katie, the other Katie said, Marin Health Director Matt Willis said, when done right, in-person school actually protects against virus transmission. I must also add that we love our teachers. I have been a room mom, fundraiser donor, and vocal advocate. Even though vaccinating teachers is not a requirement to be safe, we should prioritize their vaccine so that they feel safe. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Katie, appreciate it.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, my name is Erin Beisler, and I'm a parent of a 7th grader in the district. I am losing hope that the 7 to 12 graders will return this year, as well as questioning next fall. Children are not meant to be isolated all day and attend class through a computer screen. The children in this community are falling further behind daily academically, and perhaps more importantly, are losing out on the social aspect of attending in-person school, which contributes to mental health issues like depression and anxiety. Kids are showing symptoms such as fatigue, worry, problems focusing, stress, obesity, insomnia, headaches, lack of motivation. Just last night, there was yet another report on the national news of a teen suicide. It cannot be ignored that that child had been struggling with remote learning. Now that we have confirmation that we can get students back in the classroom, we need to take action now, not wait until March 2nd for that plan. Schools across the country are finding a way. They're figuring it out. They're being resourceful, and they're prioritizing the education of children. I hope that NUSD joins that crusade. Thank you.
Erin, thank you very much.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, my name is Sam White. I'm here as an extremely concerned parent and alumni to your schools and a local business owner. You guys have indeed poked the bear at this point. Parents are angry. I expect you'll be hearing from us on the daily until the change occurs. I would acknowledge first that teachers should have been a priority to get vaccines and the speed bump that creates in the reopening process. I will also acknowledge that nothing that we're going through right now is what you all signed up for. So I acknowledge and appreciate the difficulty of your situation. Perhaps a different skill set is required to get where we need to go. The decisions you're about to make and the conversations you will have tonight could very well shape the district for years to come. Not to mention the immediate impact for the children this year. I'm begging you not to kick this can down the road. Engage your community. Get the kids back 5 days a week in some fashion, in person. Your community of parents is a substantial asset to the district. Either engage with us and with them as part of the solution or face them as your adversary. None of us want to be your adversary, but if it's you versus our kids, it's going to be our kids every single time. For the most part, we absolutely love the individual teachers and have continuously supported them with supplies, volunteer hours, and all that stuff. My wife is a room mom. I'm a softball coach. I'm not telling you this because I want a cookie. I just want you to know that I'm not lobbing the criticism I'm about to give you from the sidelines. We are your trench people that have been here to support you and the teachers from day one. From what I can tell, granted the lack of transparency leaves most folks to speculate, the NFT is standing in the way of the full reopening. Almost every teacher we have spoken to is willing to go back now or at minimum once vaccinated. They are correct in mentioning that they have shown up every single time they've been requested, but it appears that they are holding reentry plan hostage to advance the position beyond COVID. That is deplorable, but unless you demand, the board demands a full-time reentry, they will not show up. Last spring, it made sense to let the dust settle, gather data, establish a plan for the reopening of schools.
Sam, you got 10 seconds. Thank you.
All right, well, anyway, I'm not going to be able to get to what I need to get. I think it's ridiculous. You guys have shortened our time to from 3 minutes to 2 minutes. I think this is just an example of how terrible you've handled this entire situation. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. I see the graphic, but I'm looking for a name. Tara? Okay. We're still working on it, Tara.
You got me?
Yes, we're good. I hear a voice.
Yeah, this is Paul, actually, not Tara. This is her husband.
Oh, hey.
Yeah, how you doing? So our kids in the community are obviously at a breaking point, and quite honestly, nothing short of a new reentry plan that gets our kids back on campus immediately is just unacceptable. And specifically to the 2021 school year, this plan has to be done, probably within the next 30 days, or many families will be forced to look at alternatives to NUSD. You can't just do it on the last day of August and say, I'm going to do something different. If there's not a plan in place, NUSD is going to be looking at a lot more than the current 400 students that have left the district. And that number, I don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to be substantial, which benefits nobody. It results in teachers that are going to be laid off. It results in the district getting less money from the state. And quite honestly, it's counterproductive. So again, nothing short of an immediate return and then a full plan in place within a month for the 21-22 school year is the only thing that we would accept at this point. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, Paul. Say hello to Tara.
Hey, Tara.
Hi, good evening, trustees. Ross Ingalls. I am a Novato parent of 2 girls. I wanted to start by telling you I'm disappointed that you've chosen this topic to limit public comment, changing the rules at the last second. Back in December, you guys extended 45 minutes of time to allow people from out of town to complain about the school resource officer program here in our town, and now you're limiting our time on this very important topic. Anyway, yesterday we talked a little bit about this press conference. The County of Marin issued a joint press release with the MCOE, and the headline of that press release said that Marin has minimized virus spread in schools. In the release, Dr. Lisa Santora stated that data has shown that schools are not a driver of community transmission, but rather provide a safe, stable, structured, supervised, and supportive environment that reduces risk behaviors associated with COVID-19 transmission, such as household mixing for childcare and unsupervised gatherings for socialization. The press release also states that according to figures maintained by the Marin County Public Health and the MCOE, there have only been 10 cases of suspected in-school transmission of COVID-19 as of February 5th. Of those, 5 were student to student, 3 were adult to adult, 2 were adult to student, and there have been no student to adult transmissions in school. Are we really saying that schools aren't safe to open when the schools that are open, including private, have only had 10 total cases of in-school transmission? This week, the county will reach 1 million hours of in-person instruction, and there have been 0 cases of student to adult transmission in those schools. Can the NFT continue to argue that it's not safe for their members to return to class when there have been 0 cases of student to adult transmissions in any classroom in this county after 1 million hours of in-person instruction? Are we really going to let 10 total cases of in-school transmission stop us from opening schools? As the other speakers have mentioned, suicide is on the risk, depression is rising, our kids are suffering. It's time to open the schools. It's time to open them now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, Ross.
Are you ready for me?
Yes, I hear you. Oh, it's Heather.
Okay, yes, thank you. I have so many things to say, but I'm looking at these high school students, and I have a high school student of my own. My daughter also graduated last year from San Marin High School, and she was one of the unfortunate 2020 graduates. And now my son is a junior this year. And so I look at them, and I know a lot of these parents tonight have younger students, and I really want to speak to the high school students. All of us parents, those of you on the board, the administration, a year for us is not really quite the same. I mean, losing a year for me has really sucked, but it's 1 year in my long life. These children, these teens, this means a lot more. A year it's not okay to lose. I know Elizabeth, I know you're graduating. I'm not sure Jada, if you are as well this year. Yes, and it's not okay for you to lose it. And so when we're talking right now about weeks, those weeks matter. Every single week matters right now. It's waiting until next year. I know a lot of you are like, well, by next year, let's get to full time. No, we need to get to full time, not just hybrid, but full time now. These poor high school students haven't even set foot on the campus. If they're not in a sport, they really haven't set foot on the campus. And really, speaking to the sports, that is the only thing that has saved my own son. And I know we're throwing around mental health. It's a very personal subject for me, but we can just keep saying mental health, but that means depression, suicide, and when we start seeing the results of what has happened, we can't wait until then, right? We can't wait till next year and say, oh, wow, we had 10 suicides last year because of what happened. We have to do something right now. So I implore you to please take action. Thank you.
Heather, thank you very much. This will be our last speaker, right?
You have your last speaker and one person joins you.
Yeah.
Yes, everybody wants to take the next two speakers, so we will take the 13th and the 14th speaker. Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Jordan Ward, yes, we hear you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jordan Ward. I am a nurse here in Marin County. I'm a Novato resident and the mother of 6th and 8th graders at Sinaloa. My husband is a teacher at Marin Catholic High School. He's been back in-person teaching since September and speaks of the positive effects he sees in both his students and himself since being back on campus. Tonight, I'm asking that the board make a commitment in accordance with guidelines and recommendations from the CDC, the CDPH, Governor Gavin Newsom, Marin County health officials, Doctors Matt Willis and Lisa Santora, and over 60 Marin County pediatricians, and direct our essential Novato teachers to return to campus without delay and resume in-person teaching now. I also ask that the board call for a special session to reconvene 1 week from today to commit this plan to action and return our 7th and 8th graders to in-person learning by February 22nd. I beg the board and NUSD staff to do your job and, like us parents, advocate for our Novato students, follow the recommendations and guidance of experts at the national, state, and local level, and return our students to in-person learning today without delay. Our children's physical and mental health depends on it. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, Jordan. We have one more speaker.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, Michelle.
Yes, thank you. I'm a parent of 2 NUSD students, a 4th grader and a 6th grader. I'm very grateful they're back in school part-time. Seeing the difference this has made is incredible. And I know a return to a regular school day would bring an even greater improvement in their learning, social skills, and overall mental well-being. I get very sad when I think about students that haven't had this opportunity yet. I'm a healthcare provider, a professional, and I've had to continue my work throughout the pandemic. I understood teachers' concerns for getting sick at the outset and for many months into the pandemic. But at this point, I think a position of not returning to school is indefensible. Even the CDC has recommended teachers return, that schools can safely reopen. We're fortunate that I've been able to hire homework helpers for my kids. My son was failing all his classes. My daughter was struggling. What about folks that can't afford this? There are equity issues here. Marin has a long-standing history of failing to see the harm caused to our community when members of color are suffering, and I think it's happening again. Novato has a Not in Our Town campaign against racial discrimination, and I think that we have to face it. Yes, in our town, it's happening right now. As others have said, there have been 0 cases of student-to-teacher transmission. I ask you to please stop listening to the union representatives and do what we ask our students to do. Listen to the science. Listen to your heart. Kids are suffering. Private school students are back in school full-time, meaning money means that you can have an access to in-person learning. And it means a loss to the NUSD of involved parents who contribute to the schools in many ways. So start planning now, not in March. Kids are suffering now, and they need us and you to show up now for 5 days a week of full school days instruction in person. That's what they need. Nothing less makes sense at this point.
Thank you very much. So that's the end of our public comment. I'm going to bring it back to the board table for conversation. And I'm first going to go to our student board members. I know, Elizabeth, would you like to speak first?
Sure thing. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I know this one has actually been, a big part of my heart right now because, I was lucky enough to be able to look through the agenda items. And when I saw this one, it stuck out with me. So I wrote a little blurb. I hope it's okay for me to share. And I'm coming to you guys reading this as not only a board member, not only a student, but as your friend, because I know sometimes you got to be vulnerable and speak from the heart in order to get what you need to say across. So To the esteemed board in which I sit upon tonight, it's not every day that I prepare a statement for a discussion action item. My greatest hope is to represent the majority of the student population, yet for this particular task, I think the best I can possibly contribute to the community are my own words, those of a high school senior, shared from my own experiences. Every morning for the past year, it gets a little harder to get out of bed. What's the point if you have nothing to look forward to, or nothing to be curious about? What I took for granted was how much unexpected enjoyment school blesses us with from the little moments. It's the confidence boost after a teacher applauds your answer. It's waving to that friend you haven't seen in months walking down the hallway. It's looking forward to hearing a new story, enlightening one another through personal connection. It's hearing your favorite song at a school concert. It's the feeling of the shoulders of your teammates supporting you during a team huddle. All of this gone within an instant. Circumstances are not at the hands of this district. It is rather a global issue. However, you can make this situation and what is of it something greater, because this is in your power. Choose wisely. The starry-eyed Elizabeth that bled green and gold is now more dim. I get irritated easily. I find myself cussing more, which pre-COVID was unheard of for me. I make self-loathing remarks frequently because I now have the time to sit and dwell on every mistake I have made. I become more hopeless, depressed, anxious with the unknown, sobbing until I have headaches sometimes because I know that every irreplaceable second is one closer to death and we are all losing so much life. I believe that the way we bring quality into the world of our students is through opportunity. Opportunity to rebuild again, because if we never try, then we truly never know. If there are critical health concerns with teachers that can be addressed, we can work to accommodate them. But we must give the majority a chance to have a life again. Look at the science, look at the data from the CDC, look at the number of transmission cases from schools who have been open full-time 5 days a week since September. We've been shown that it is possible. It takes leadership and accountability on all fronts. The administrators, the teachers, and each and every student and their families to unify and set aside their individual needs for the greater good so all of us can return to school and regain some mental health balance that so many of us have lost. I know I'm not the only one to have great confidence in this new in-person learning plan, but we will create a happier and more successful community. In order to heal the broken hearts and relationships of all the people in NUSD, I mean, we've seen it tonight. We are so divided. We must band together to support Chris Koska's proposition because he has taken so much time in order to do so. The return to school has always been a fluid situation from March 13, 2020, and it will continue to be that way until COVID is over. However, there needs to be clear, defined expectations and action plans for the re-entry phase, and I am more than happy to help contribute to that. For example, from the moment we get out of the red tier, we have a plan to go to the next phase up until we are officially returning 5 days a week. There must not be any hesitation in the pursuit of a goal to return to school full-time, which should be ideally this spring. So please, I'm begging you guys for my senior year and on behalf of all the students, that's basically what I wanted to say from my heart. And thank you for listening tonight.
Thank you very much. I'm sure we'll have more. You'll think of more wonderful things to come to your heart as we have this conversation. So Ava, would you like to speak, and then Jada, and then we'll go to the other board members and you can participate fully.
Yeah. I didn't come with a statement, but I would like to applaud Elizabeth. I truly believe and agree with everything that she stated. But I will talk from my own personal experience. It may seem superficial to a lot of adults, walking down the hallway, saying hi to your favorite teacher, or going to a school dance and just sitting in class. It's something that I took for granted so much. The first week of I remember the very first week when we got the announcement that school was going to be canceled. I was like, oh my God, we're going to have a 2-week break. This is going to be so nice. And if I could talk to myself back then, the things I would say. I think it's taken an extremely harsh toll on my own mental health. And I know that it's taken an extreme toll on the health, the physical and mental health of kids across the district. Yeah, I'm in full support of the schools, all schools reopening to full capacity as soon as possible, because these are all very, very precious moments to all of us.
Jada, anything you want to say?
Yeah, I'd like to say that I completely agree with Elizabeth, and it has been really hard for not just me, but I know a lot of my peers. It's been hard for us to feel motivated to do anything. So I think this is really important to take into consideration, and I'm really glad that we're all talking about it.
Okay, I'm going to continue with the rest of the board members. Trustee Mack? No, I think we'll go around the table pretty soon, but if anybody has anything they want to lead with it.
Well, I'd like to just start with some questions for Chris. So,
Yeah. Chris, are you with us?
I am. Hey, Chris, can you pull up the presentation?
I can.
Just a couple clarifications. They're somewhat rhetorical, but I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page here outside. So, the slide that talks about change 1. Do you have a date when you think that went into place, when they did that? Really, my question is going to be for change 1 and change 2. Do you know what date they did that?
I truly don't know the dates. I wish I did. I don't know the dates. It's changed so many times over the course of the last 6 months. I don't know.
I'd say it's safe to say sometime during the holidays, though, when we were in SIP.
Yes, it was between October and mid-January. I know that much.
Okay, got it. And then our original full hybrid date was really just about a month ago, January 4th. And if, I don't know, I'm looking around the table, if anybody knows, how long were we in SIP?
In what?
How long were we in shelter in place? About a month?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Okay, so
Beginning of
I just
December.
feel like we're pretty much exactly where we expected we'd be if we got to SIP. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is that the plan was well done. It's just that we didn't anticipate going into purple, much less SIP. And now here we are.
Yeah, I mean, my comment is, they changed this. They changed the 7th and 8th grade rule, right? And so we could have brought 7th and 8th graders back. We discussed it. One of the key things that we discussed is that our 7th and 8th grade students have the most contacts of any students on campus. They have 6 periods. They're in more cohorts on campus. And when the cases were sky high, we weren't convinced that we could do it safely. And our number one priority is to make sure that we could do it safely. In hindsight, I wish I would have brought something forward at the last meeting. I wish that we would have brought this forward at the last meeting. We didn't. We can't fix that. As I shared in my presentation earlier tonight, we do have a chance to fix that tonight. Or we can fix it March 2nd, really at the pleasure of the board.
Got it. All right. So, I'll just jump where I'm at, just so everybody knows. The way I see it, there's really 4 different pieces of what we're here to talk about, and what we need to figure out. Number 1 is the 7 and 8s. And to your point, Chris, we have the opportunity to actually put them in pretty quick, maybe February 22nd. Mm-hmm. In fact, I'm going to make a motion for that. Mm-hmm. Number 2, really tighten the plan for reentry to red, mm-hmm. for the 9 through 12s. Mm-hmm. So that basically instead of 2 weeks and 3 weeks, what was it? Decision number 2.
It would be 5 days.
It's 5 days, and that's going to be my second motion to change that to 5 school days. So that really, I will be, whenever you're ready for me to do it, Ross. But 1 is going to get 7 and 8s back in school, regardless of tier.
Before I accept the motion, I want to make sure everybody
Absolutely.
has one chance to talk first. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
On February 22nd, after everybody comes back from winter break. And then the second motion will be to allow the 9 and 10s back onto campus within 5 school days of going red. And then really.
So before you move on from that, if I could ask a question, Greg, I just want to make sure I understand. The reason you're saying 5 school days is because that gives the staff a little bit of time in case it happens during midwinter break. Like, so for example, if they change this to red tier on the Tuesday of midwinter break, we would have 5 school days, so Monday through Friday, to allow staff to make sure that they're ready and communicate with parents what they need to communicate with parents, and then the following Monday they'd be back. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
I'm open to discussion because I need to understand the ins and outs. I mean, let's say it gets declared tomorrow. I'd really like to see if we can pull it off on the 22nd. But understand your point. Not only the students will be out next week, the teachers will be too. So
that's why I just wanted to make sure that when you say school days, that would mean that if it happened tomorrow, it wouldn't be able to happen until after the 23rd. But we can work through the wording if we need to. I'm happy to help with that.
I'll work through that language.
Yeah.
So I say there's 4 things. Those are the first 2, the 7/8s, then the 9/10s, 11/12s. The third, and this is something a lot of people talked about tonight, is extending hybrid to 5 nights a week. 5 days a week. We're here tonight. And I really want to embrace that. However, it's my understanding, I totally agree that staff needs to work on that, to work with our bargaining units, because our current MOU is set at what it's set at. And then last but not least, and I think when I look around this table, I think every one of us agrees, we are all in on trying to get full-time on campus this fall. We just, ceteris paribus, assuming everything keeps on progressing the way it is. So I want also you to your point earlier, Chris, to study that as well. But I understand we can't act on that tonight. So, bottom line is we got a lot of emails. We read them all. We understand them all. Unfortunately, there's lots of disinformation out there. There is an agreement with NFT. It governs what we're doing right now. We do want to actually go into full-time by fall. Anybody's talking about us saying we're going to default to hybrid in fall is making things up. And I just want to express a little bit of concern that the emails we received, very passionate. I agree with almost everything and every one of them. I'm just concerned, why are we seeing those same emails from our more diverse schools? Why is it they tend to come from our schools that aren't diverse? And I'm not pointing a finger. Seriously, I'm not. I just ask everybody here to think about that. People who wrote the letters, people who didn't write the letters. Why is that happening? It really goes to equity. It really goes to what is it that we might need to do better. That's all.
Okay.
And last point, I just want to call out to Heather. Heather, I have a high school kid too. 2020 sucked. I feel your pain. He graduated last year, if you want to call it that. And I totally agree with you. They're only this age once. I want to get them going. 1 year for me is nothing compared to what it is for my age.
Yep. Okay, so everybody's gonna get a chance to talk, and then we'll talk about doing motions. Who else going to next? Marie? Okay.
Oops. Okay. So I just want to say that we received a lot of emails in favor of, we were bombarded with emails, and understandably so, and mostly in favor of returning to school. And some emails were, the fact that there was so many just tells me how I'm so grateful that I live in Novato and that our parents are involved and they're not shy in communicating with us, and that they're trusting us to be able to entrusting us with their children's education. So I just want to acknowledge those parents. Within those emails, you know, there were some that were negative towards us. And again, that has a lot to do with just what's out there, you know, in the streets. And, but, you know, I took those as, I didn't take those personally. I took those as the parents' frustration. And students are frustrated. And our teachers are, I'm sure, frustrated as well. So, so I just wanted to acknowledge that. And I want to thank our teachers for just hanging in there and doing what they can. And I'm especially grateful for those emails of the parents who and we you know, I read them, and I didn't reply to all, of course, but there were some emails where the parents, they weren't just complaining, but they wanted to be part of the solution, and they've offered their time, their money, their knowledge, and willing to come to a school, to a classroom, to us, to the community, to, you know, medical parents that were our doctors and the one to share with us, and just trying to ease our, you know, the fear of COVID. And we have to be careful too. You know, I mean, you know, I feel like what we've been doing so far is the right thing, you know, so as far as that goes. And I'm especially thankful tonight for the student trustees, because I have to say that tonight I felt that the words that they said came from their heart, and it was their own words. And I could just feel that it was their words, their feelings, sharing with us. And so I really appreciate that, especially from Elizabeth. And however, you know, it's up to us. I know that you guys want to go back, and I just want to, you know, I didn't hear like a plan from the student trustees, which that's fine. That's our job. And so I like Greg's, trustee Mac's proposal. And so I'm open to conversation with that, about that.
You want to go? Go ahead. Trustee Jacobs.
Hi. Thank you so much to all of our parents. I also felt like a bit of joy in the amount of engagement. Greg, I also asked that question about the equity and who is speaking up. I reached out to some people that I know that were not represented, and they had the same sentiments. They just did not feel comfortable reaching out in this platform. So we do have some work to do, but they are feeling the same. I also would have liked this to have come up sooner, but we're here now, so let's do what we can. I'm on board for moving forward in all the ways that we've discussed so far. I don't think we need to rehash.
Trustee Nell.
Well, I certainly support the concept of getting back into full in-person learning as soon as possible. And I understand where we've been and where we are now. Essentially, but I think we need to discuss what the plan that staff is proposing they want to bring back is going to look like on March 2nd, which is the current recommendation. And then we have the comments from Trustee Mack, who are suggesting that we move that up. And I am on the side that we should be doing everything in our power to order our schools back open as soon as we are identified as a red tier community. And from, I guess I'll just call upon personal private sector experience, is that if we really wanted to do this, we would find a way to be back in full person learning within 5 days, because it would be important to everyone involved in our long-term survival. So I'm not really hearing enough about options for consideration, consequences for decisions to opening faster than later, and so forth. So I think it's important we hear a little bit more from the superintendent as to what he thinks he's coming back with, and then have an opportunity to maybe challenge some of that and see why we can't push it a little bit farther. I don't want to say, you know, in full strict authority, but I'm pretty sure that this board has the ability to say, open these schools immediately or as soon as physically possible. And I understand there's contract issues and things along those lines, but contracts are always subject to negotiation between two parties as immediately. And if we can't work things out, if that is an obstacle, which I think it is, but it's not the whole structural problem with reopening. Obviously, there's logistics involved. But I really come down on the side of you guys that we really need to instruct staff to get these schools open and in full person learning as soon as possible. I'm not trying to dilute or the concerns of safety. I think you guys all know that I've had personal loss. This disease is a killer.
People die.
And not only have I had personal loss, but I've also had some scares going along. But at the same time, I'm living in a world where everybody shows up to work at the work location, wearing masks, social distancing, staying clean, and doing certain things, and having meetings and discussing things, engaging with customers personally. Go to Trader Joe's, go to Safeway. I mean, we are out in our communities working and living, and I just don't, what we know now and where we are now, vaccines coming out, the evidence that's the science, the research that's been happening, I just don't really see a reason anymore to wait at all. And so that, I understand physical logistics and things along those lines, but my question is to the superintendent, how soon and fast and what do you need and how much do you need in the way of resources and authority to get our schools back to full in-person learning? That's my question. So I know you're going around, but maybe you'll get to Chris and we can hear what he says.
Maybe we can, by the time we get there, maybe Chris can join us at the table.
Okay. So that's where I'm at, you guys. I don't know what we're waiting for.
Debbie?
Yeah, I'm between Trustee Mack and Trustee Nell and where I stand in my thoughts. And I think we can all agree that teaching and learning in the classroom is the best environment that we can give our students. So we've got to get them back in the classroom. Whether that looks like still in a hybrid type mode or all the way to full in classroom. And I hope 2020, 21, 22, we start the year off where we're back to all in the classroom. I hope we can at least do that. The 7th and 8th, let's get them back on campus as soon as we can, just as it's been shared by both Trustee Mack and Nell. My worry with the high school a little bit is the hybrid mode. And I don't want to sit here and dwell on all the little details. That's to go back to staff and let them figure that out. But I worry about, hybrid is not the greatest for high school. Really, back in the classroom is the best. When you do hybrid for high school, it's the technology piece that worries me a little bit. Do we have all of that? So looking at Superintendent Koska's recommendation is to have the authority to explore and change the plan. So I don't want to go deep into detail too much because then it just sets it up for failure. If we give too much direction, I don't want to set the staff up for failure. I want them to be able to have some broad strokes here to be able to bring us back something, but understand that we want our students back in class as soon as possible, as soon as we can. So I'm gonna kind of leave it at that. My other thing is elementary. If it's as little as just extending the day in the classroom, still hybrid, but giving more time in the classroom would be ideal. And I think that was about it for now. And I think I really want to hear from Superintendent Koska.
Yeah, well, he'll be able to join us back here. We'll put up the Trustee Gasson, and then I have some thoughts.
Okay. So first, I want to thank the student trustees. I appreciated your speaking and hearing your perspective. My girls are, as most everyone knows, are in 6th and 8th. Some of the same things are happening for them. And so it's a struggle. And, I have to agree. I'm going to be a little bit all over the place because by the time you come around, I'm like, oh, I've got some dinner. So maybe I'll start with this first. I have read every single message that we got. I've responded to, I think, every message. I know probably over half the people. So I understand the perspective. The one thing that through all of these messages that I well, maybe not all, but a lot of the messages seem to imply that we don't want the kids to go back, that we're just, you know, that's not what that we're not focusing on that. And for me, when I hear that, first of all, it's not true for me. I want my kids back too, and everybody else's, but I get stuck in this place that I'm like, we've got these guidelines that we're supposed to follow. We've got the federal guidelines, we've got the state guidelines, we hear different things from Marin County Public Health. To the extent that I made a chart and I said, okay, what does each of them say about distancing? What does each of them say about testing? What does each of them say about vaccinations? What, you know, the other thing, the big thing is cohorts. If you look at the California Department of Education, their cohort size max is 15. So how do you go? You know, I'm a logical thinker, and I'm like, okay, so how do you get all these kids back 6 feet apart, only allowing 15 kids at a time? And so it's not that, for me, that's where we get stuck a little bit, or at least I get stuck, and I think that the district gets stuck, is how do we maintain those rules that we need to be following so our kids are safe? And to that extent, or to that degree, I also would like to, at some point, discuss what metrics are we going to use. We are in Marin County, and we're very fortunate to be here. We have excellent public health information coming out. They've been tracking and tracing. Other places in California are not doing that. And so we have the ability to do things a little differently than, you know, a blanketed, every kid has to be 6 foot apart. You know, again, Marin County Public Health is recommending 4 feet. They don't have cohorts. They refer to, I think it's social, no, it's not social. There's another term that Dr. Santora said she's using now, which means more, as long as you can track those kids and keep good attendance, that's what we want to know, because then we can follow up and check. So that 15 kids. Anyway, so that's on the side for discussion at some point. I would hope maybe the board can come up with guidance to staff as to what are we going to use. Are we using, you know, the Marin County Public Health because that's where we are and that's what we should follow, or should we be following the state? With regards to the 7th and 8th, I think very much as what Trustee Mack said, I think if we can get them in sooner, I think that would be like sometime after the break, we can manage that. That would be great. 9th through 12th. Or changing the thing to the waiting period after red to 5, totally in agreement with that. I do think we need to have a little bit of a break, which staff can advise in terms of not having all 4 grades at the same week. And also making sure that if we turn red next week, I don't know, just logistics around that. I'm worried if we turn red next week, then that would put us back right after spring break, which might be a little complicated for that. I don't know. But in concept, I'm good with that. Oh, and just as a side note, or not a side note, another little piece, and I think Debbie, you touched on it a little bit, or Trustee Butler, the hybrid is not, it's great that we have the opportunity to do hybrid, but it's not the end solution. I'm watching my daughter go to school from 8:20 to 10:20, and she's pretty much done by 11. Then the teacher has to go and do another session. The teacher is fabulous, love them all, but they're getting, I'm sure, tired because they're running 2 different sessions during a day. And then that means that, you know, my kid is like, today she's walking around bored. I had her do Valentine's, but, you know, what am I going to do tomorrow? I mean, she's just free the whole rest of the day.
You have chickens or something?
We have chickens, but she doesn't like going out there because it's a mess. But, you know, I just would like to see, this is a good step forward, but what are the hurdles and how do we get over the hurdles so we can get kids back at school more frequently? because this little limbo thing, as much as I've appreciated having her on campus, it's not much. It's 2 hours a day, and then there's not a whole lot after. And again, not to the fault. No, it's not the teachers to blame. It's just the way that it's worked out right now.
Thank you. I'm going to make a few comments and then we'll figure out what to do next. So I'm going to, like Diane, I listened, I'll probably ramble a little bit and I apologize.
Are you saying I ramble?
Oh, well, see, there you go. Now I'm in trouble already. So this COVID circumstance that we're in this country, we're hitting we're over 400,000 deaths. We're approaching 500,000 deaths. This isn't something that's a minor inconvenience or a bad winter or a lot of flooding or, there was a fire in 2,000 houses burnt to the ground and the rest of the Bay Area was fine. This is an event like the Great Depression or World War II, or this is the time when people who were going to graduate didn't graduate and signed up for the Army and the services and went to war for 4 years. Their world changed. This is this kind of event. This isn't something that, everybody should expect to have nothing impact their lives and everything will be fine. My dad got through an 8th grade education and left because the Great Depression made it so he had to go to work. There are things that have happened in the last 100 years where terrible things have happened and completely changed people's lives. We should do everything we can to minimize that impact. And we should be thankful for teachers and garbage workers and restaurant workers and grocery store clerks who come and put themselves at risk, and hospital workers who come to work and get sick and die on the job trying to make sure we can get through this. But to expect inconsequential impacts to everybody, it's just not the nature. This is a 1 in 100 year event. The last time this nation saw anything like that was, maybe it was the Great Depression. Well, when I was 10 or 11, the issue was polio. And my young friends were getting a disease that destroyed their muscles. And sometimes it was they couldn't breathe and they ended up living in an iron lung for the rest of their lives, or they lost the ability of one of their limbs and couldn't walk or couldn't use their arms. And I went through where I know my folks pulled over to the side of the road, once at Cloverdale and once in Petaluma, to get us into a Salk vaccine or a Sabin vaccine inoculation, because it was the most important thing they could do for us, was to make sure that me and my 2 brothers didn't get the disease that was destroying young people. We're at that kind of an event. There will be consequences in everybody's lives. And Elizabeth, some of them are in your life and some of them are in my family's lives and some of them are in my grandkids' lives. It's just, you're not going to get away with nothing. It's going to make a difference in your life forever. That doesn't mean we don't need to do everything we possibly can. And the leadership of this district, the superintendent, and the 7 of us have to figure out what we can do is to minimize that impact to both our workers and to our students and to the families and homes that they come from. So it's a big problem, I guess is my point. It is a big problem. And it's been complicated like in everything else for lack of clarity. The CDC, that in the polio vaccine era came up with a definitive solution and distributed it across this country, that solution failed in this administration. Just now, the CDC is getting its legs underneath it. They're coming out with clear recommendations. It's not a matter of 10 different people trying to figure out how it's politically advantageous to one group or another. We're getting clear guidance from the CDC. Finally, we're getting some from the state, and Dr. Willis at the county to me is becoming a clearer and clearer voice. But part of that is there's more and more data and they can speak to it. But part of it is the medical profession, I think, is being given the freedom to make good recommendations. So I know we have letters from the pediatric Association telling us to help reopen schools because in their judgment, the consequences to children are more severe than with schools closed and open. So I'm more than frustrated by ever since March 16th, the lack of good, clear medical information. And I think you're seeing that play out in all kinds of political venues. Some people don't like the governor. Some people don't like the past president. Some people don't like this president. But the fact is, all of it comes down to not being able to clearly focus on what's needed to serve kids. I'm glad we're here. My hope is Nevada's like small town democracy. This is a place where if you don't like what's going on, you call that school board, your friend that's on the school board, and you go down there, or the city council, and you put your slippers on and you go downtown and you complain to them. And in fact, the door's open and the process is open. And here we are discussing the important issue before the community. And I'm glad that we have an organization that maybe we can't get to it immediately, but we can get to it. So I think this process, not pardon me, a hired employee who's really good at this, but this public body and the leadership of a professional is what's going to get us out of this box that we're in. And I think we need to get out of the box that we're in. Remember, we're seeing there's 300, almost 500,000 people dead. That's 3,000 people a day that are dying. So this is not little. But finally, when this is all said and done, I've been trained as an engineer. I grew up in construction. I have a lot of friends who are scientists, but I'm not a scientist. I'm an engineer. I got a very practical bent in everything I do. We need a plan to get us out of here. And the plan's got to be workable. It's got to have real steps. They got to be practical steps. There's got to be somebody assigned to do the steps. This isn't a grand theory. This is how we're going to get here. So my hope is we get the superintendent to sit here and we direct him, who has all the time in the world. He gets paid to do this job. We don't. He has the time in the world to craft the plan that moves forward on the items that we think are important. And I heard the items we think are important are opening 7th and 8th, opening 9 and 10, opening 11 and 12. Using the new criteria, the 5-day criteria, maybe 5 school days, maybe that's better than 5 calendar days. Using the freedom to get from purple to red in the middle schools. And then move towards the full-time in fall, which I heard. So maybe those are specific things goals we can give the superintendent, and some of those are going to, we hope, happen before March 2nd, but we say to him, come back with a plan, give us the specifics, because he's got to do things like, do we have enough technology on the campus? Can we put enough kids in each classroom? Can you compact them? We have to have, maybe there's things we have to negotiate with the union. There's a lot of underlying detail. The plan falls apart without the detail in place. So my hope is we give clear focus, and then Julie, I'll call on you next, and take from that we end up here at this table with some specifics we take to the community that we're saying we're going to be committed to these dates, and we'll have a plan, more specific plan on March 3rd. Julie, you had some comments relative.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much for letting me finish.
Of course. Sorry. 2 things. One, I think we need to move on 7-8 and the 5-day change from 2 weeks today. And 2, I think we need to remember what our job is and what this office's job is. And this office can produce for us a plan. Mm-hmm. I think they know what we want, and they report out to us weekly, so we can keep eyes on it. But we should not be trying to take that job away from them and tell them how to do it. So let's trust who has put us already so far ahead of so many schools in California. My brother lives in Sacramento. Not a single public school there is open at all in hybrid, nor any of our adjacent counties.
In San Francisco, the city's suing the school district because nobody's back. I mean, would we like the superintendent out here to join us for the conversation?
Yeah, if he's done presenting,
Yeah,
come back up.
Chris, can you join us at the table and we can have a conversation?
Absolutely. I will log out here and head out there.
Thank you, sir. Debbie, you want to wait a minute until he gets here so we
yeah,
can hear your
sure.
comments? And then Trustee Mack next. And Julie, I believe we have to have dates that are ahead of March 2nd. I believe, if I wasn't clear about that, I think there's some dates that hit before March 2nd.
Great.
But thank you, sir. So we think this is a collaboration. So I'm going to let Trustee Butler had some questions, I think.
Just a comment to what I heard from everybody talking, just like Trustee Getson. It's like, oh, my brain just starts going crazy now. I want to make sure, gosh, now I just lost my train of thought. The timeline, you know, when the original plan was presented in October, we had a timeline in it, and the community really, you know, I think the timeline is important. And I know with the stay-at-home orders that happened in the beginning of December, and then as we tried to hold on to that timeline and we just couldn't. And then a couple of weeks ago, we just said, let's just drop the timeline. I'll let you know when we can actually do something. I think we need to revisit a timeline aspect and provide some dates to our community and how we're going to roll this out in some way. I don't want to box our staff in. I want to be able to have to bring us back something. I don't want to, like I said earlier, I don't want to give any more detailed direction to them. I want to just some simple direction, but give them a broad stroke to be able to bring a plan. They have a lot of work ahead of them, negotiations and just working through, making sure we're ready. I can't set our staff up for failure. That's the last thing I want to do. And I think in the end, we all want the same thing. We all want our students, but it's how we get there. We're a little bit jumbled a little bit, but we all want the same result.
Yeah, Diana.
So you made me think of something I was remiss in not saying, and I just can't say how much I appreciate all the safety protocols that are in place for our schools, at least in the middle school. As I said, I went through this chart to see what things are required, and they had, all these different, we have exceeded every single thing that is on there. From, I have to remember to do my crisis go in the morning before my child's allowed to be on campus, to the plexiglass dividers that are in the classrooms, the ventilation changes that we've done, there was just like, we've done all the things that are required, and then we've done more. So that's a huge positive and thing in our favor, and we should always keep that in mind when we are looking at how we're going to move forward, that we've set ourselves up for success, and that we're doing so well that we should be able to keep moving forward from that.
So, Trustee Mack, and then Superintendent Cuss would like to ask you a couple questions.
I'll go ahead.
Yeah. No.
Okay. Well, first, actually, I want to say thank you to Chris for your leadership through all this. You didn't sign up for this either. And everything you're doing here, we don't know where we'd be without you and your team. So thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Ross talks about being an engineer. I'm an old consultant. And so my MO is to take a problem and deconstruct it into bite-sized pieces. And this is a big problem. And so I want to break it into 4 pieces. I think 2 of the pieces we can act on tonight without disrupting, because it's really basically taking the existing plan and taking into account new information and running with it without changing the existing plan. But the last 2 definitely need to get headed back to staff to figure out. So the first 2 are the 7/8s, bringing them back February 22nd, regardless of tier, in purple, because we can. And we didn't know we could, but now we know. The second part is this 5-day thing. And I think I have a way of wording it. And Chris, I want you to speak up if you have a concern. But I think what I would propose is that we bring back the 9 and 10s only, because we stick to the plan, just the 9 and 10s. We don't flood the campus. Bring back the 9 and 10s the first Monday after, or 5 days after red. Five weekdays after red.
5 school days?
Weekdays.
Let me work on you. Give us the idea, and I'll give you the educational lens on it.
So basically, the idea is that, let's say that red happens on Thursday.
So here's what I would propose is that at some point you all give me a chance to talk and share what I think might be a good idea moving forward, which I could have done honestly an hour ago.
That's been my position.
And so, you know, I appreciate all the perspective and I appreciate all the sharing. I appreciate, you know, the community input. But at some point I'd like to be able to just make a recommendation and for us to be able to let our guests that are watching, that are stressing, that are wondering what the recommendation is going to be, stop wondering and stressing and actually just tell them what I would propose we do. And it's complicated only because midwinter break and the fact that we can't trust the state on their deadlines for communications, right? So typically they only move tiers on Tuesdays, but sometimes they move tiers on other days. And so it's more, I know everybody wants to make this a simple problem with a simple solution. It's not. I know everybody thinks we should have had a plan a year ago when this happened, and we've had a dozen. We continue to make them, we continue to revise them, and I know people are frustrated that we haven't been able to land the plane on one. Sonoma County, Solano County, Contra Costa County, San Francisco County. Those are all the counties that you can argue we touch geographically. None of them have their public schools open. Marin County, there is not a school district in Marin County that has a high school open, a public school district. So Tamales Shoreline, Tamales High, not open. Tam District, not open. Santa Fe, not open. There are some very small, very highly funded districts in this county that have middle schools open. You know, so they're a different animal. You know, they have different resources. They have different class sizes. They can adjust their staffing differently. You know, so I appreciate the frustration. I'm committed to getting our kids back on campus, and I got some ideas that I'd like to share with you that I think will do that.
You guys ready to listen? Yep. Okay. Floor is yours.
All right. So the first recommendation, based on what I'm hearing from what appears to be a quorum of the board, would be that we bring our 7th and 8th grade students back to hybrid learning on February 22nd. The second part of the recommendation would be that we adjust the reentry timeline for high schools to 5 days after we move to red, understanding that there are some complications associated with the midwinter break. And so what I would say is that we give ourselves tomorrow at 5 o'clock. If we get moved to red by tomorrow at 5 o'clock, then we bring back our 9th and 10th grades on February 22nd. If it happens after that, then we just follow the 5-day timeline, whatever the 5-day timeline says it would be. But if it's after tomorrow at 5 o'clock, we won't bring them back until the 29th because we've got to give the schools a little bit of time, or excuse me, March 1st, because there's not 29 days in February this year. Because we've got to give the schools some time to make this adjustment. We've got to give them time to train the parents and the students on Crisis Go and all the other things that we need to do to logistically make this happen. So then, as you recall, about 2.5 hours ago, you gave staff direction to meet with our labor groups, particularly Nevada Federation of Teachers, and talk about exploring ways that we can figure out what's working well for our teachers and students, and what we can do to make hybrid learning better as a transition period, and then also begin to explore what a full return looks like in the spring and what a full return looks like in the fall. Because as I've heard from all of you in different ways, we're fully committed to having all of our kids on campus in the fall. And we need to have a plan for what that looks like. And you give us authority to start exploring that with our labor partners. And then I guess that's it. That's number 5. Yeah, that's it.
How did you cover the 11, 12 grade?
11, 12 would come back just like in our reentry plan 1 week after the 9, 10.
Oh, so 9 to 10 comes back 1 week. A week after that, there's a 1 week delay.
Yep.
So that you don't shock the campus.
Yep.
They get a little bit of adjustment and then.
Yep.
It's in the original reentry
Originally
plan.
5 days. Do you need 5 calendar days, 5 school days, 5 weekdays? What do you think?
That's the state rule, is 5 days.
It doesn't say.
It doesn't say.
Yeah, and I
'Cause I think there's something to be said for starting on a Monday, is what I'm trying to get at.
I think there's something to be said for starting.
Yeah, okay.
So, I mean, if they make the change on a Tuesday, which is what they usually do, they'd be able to come back on a Monday.
Yeah,
If
5
they make
days.
it on a Wednesday, I don't want to wait till the following Monday. I want to get them back on the Tuesday, you know, so,
I hear you.
yeah. So I think that we follow one of the things we've said we do is we follow the state guidance. State guidance is 5 days.
Yep.
So I say we stick with 5 days.
So want me to make that motion then?
Well, let's figure out how he wants to do this. So just.
So why don't I try to state it one more time succinctly as best I can. I only need to cover the things about the dates. And then if somebody wants to make a motion based on what I said, would that be?
Okay, so as long as Ellen is,
Yeah.
you know, we're going to go for questions
Yeah.
first and then Ellen will record exactly what you said and that'll be the motion. We'll make it her fault. Okay, Trustee Nell?
So for grades 9, 10, 11, 12, when they come back, they're going to come back to what type of learning?
To hybrid learning.
And I think you've said that they'll be doing that until the fall.
No.
Okay, so then that's where I need, when do we transition from?
So
what is the trigger?
you gave us authority tonight
Okay.
to discuss with our labor partners what that would look like. And so we will meet with them and then we could bring you, if you want us to bring you an update on the 2nd of March, we could bring you an update on where we are with that on the 2nd of March, knowing that there aren't a lot of work days between now and the 2nd of March to do that work. So I just want to acknowledge that I don't want you to think that all of a sudden we're going to have 3 sessions with NFT and we're going to have all these amazing updates. We might be able to have 1 session in that time, just due to the falling of the midwinter break. So we could also bring you an update on 316, or we could bring you an update on 330. I mean, really, that's up to you guys to give us direction. We'll bring you the best update we can, given where we are. But the closer we get to, you know, the closer we get to now, the less time we have to actually bring you any big news.
So do
I
we
think it's
like
safe
it
to say this is the top of our agenda until we're back full time. But
Well, do we do a 3-2 update and then at that point decide if we want to need a whole month or, I mean,
okay.
is that, I mean, I don't want him to spend his whole time reporting back to us. I want him doing the work.
But is there a difference between, so if he's talking about what's negotiated in, that would be closed session anyway, right?
Probably.
Not necessarily. Yes, the actual part of the negotiations would be discussed in closed session, but there could be other updates around reentry that we could bring at the table.
And also we want our public to know what's going on.
No, I understand that.
But there's some things we
talked
share in
about
public
this-
and some things we don't.
Right, we talked about this, I meant for timing, we talked about this a little bit earlier, that maybe, at least my opinion is that there might not be a whole, which is why I wanted to make sure I was clear on this time, might not be a whole lot by March 2nd for that very reason. So we were looking at the later meeting, just kind of doing a regrouping on that. And then by then, theoretically, because we don't know when those kids will be back at the high school level, we're hoping we're going to red, but we're still kind of waiting to see when we go red so we can get them back
The
in.
data went the wrong way today. It went away from red. It went deeper into purple today. So Marie,
Yes.
question else? I want to make sure we have all these questions.
And it looks like
We're gonna
Elizabeth
get-
has a question after Maria.
Yeah, go ahead, listen.
Marie?
Okay, thank you. So I just want to let you know that that I know this board, you know, we're willing to meet. I know that sometimes if you talk to NFT and you need to meet with us and it's not a Tuesday, that we're willing to, I'm willing to meet on a special meeting or, you know, but it would be up to the president.
My hope is we give them enough direction today that
Yeah,
we
yeah,
don't have to meet
but
until another regular meeting.
And we do have 3 meetings in March, so it's not like we have a shortage of meetings. That isn't the issue.
I just want to.
Yeah, and I appreciate that.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Who's Elizabeth? Oh, look at your hands up. I missed it completely. Elizabeth, thank you. Yeah, no, I just not paying attention.
All good. So, okay, I just have a random question that I want to clarify. So, do you think that it would be possible, because I know there's that gap week, let's say that the 9th and 10th grades go back. Would it be possible to put in a clause for the 11th and 12th grades to make sure that if we go back into purple, we can still continue transitioning so that we can be prioritized to move back even if we move back into that purple tier? I was just wondering how that works, because I want to ensure that, you know, I want to make sure that everybody knows for certain that if we do plan on going back, especially for the, you know, juniors and seniors, that we stick to it and we won't let people down on that.
Yeah, so actually that's a very easy one. It's the same rule that applies to the middle schools. So once a school is opened, you can continue to repopulate it. So once we get 9th and 10th graders on campus, there would be nothing, unless they change the rules again, which I don't anticipate, they would, then you would be able to bring back the 11th and 12th.
Oh, that makes me abundantly happy. Thank you.
Good, good. Okay. Other questions? So with that, I think we got a consensus, Chris, to line up behind your outline.
Okay.
So just to be clear, 2 of those dates, the February 22 for 7th and 8th grade, we can proceed on. We're not waiting for any decision. We can proceed on those.
2 things that we can proceed on without any concern is middle school 7 and 8 returning to hybrid learning on 2/22.
Yep.
And the second item, which is adjusting the high school. So really what we're doing is we're taking the reentry plan and we're just making a couple of very minor adjustments to it, right? We're saying that we continue. So let's not get into that. That doesn't matter.
Okay, but so the first thing is.
So let me. Can I just say what I think the proposal would be?
Well, yeah,
okay, go ahead.
There's my understanding. There's 2 dates that may occur before March 2nd. One is February 22, 7 and 8 comes on, and we think there's nothing that blocks us from that. And the second is the high school reentry, but that's dependent on moving out of purple into red, and then 5 days later. So that may happen before May 2nd, March 2nd, depending. And the rest of these dates fall after March 2nd. We will have met again. Is that a fair statement?
Correct.
Okay, so you want to go ahead and, I think we're ready for him to.
Just give it a shot. Chris,
okay.
The world is your oyster, buddy.
Yeah, no, and Elizabeth, pay attention, or Elizabeth, Ellen.
First motion.
Well, I think he's going to state the position.
Whatever you guys want to do.
No, well, if you want to say it.
Go.
Okay. First motion, 7 and 8 back into hybrid learning on February 22nd, regardless of tier.
So take that as an action item. We'll make a motion. Okay.
Chris, is that okay though?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're okay.
Second.
Maria, second. Chris first. All in favor. And student trustees. There we got 3 of them. Okay.
Okay. And the second one, Chris, tell me what you think of this one.
Can't change it up.
No, the second one, the 5 days stuff. Can we just take the existing plan and change the word 2 weeks to 5 days?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just call it that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
But then there needs to be something else. That can't be the end of it.
Okay, we need to take into account what Elizabeth said.
No, we need to take into account midwinter break. And we need to take into account this happening on Thursday. So let's say hypothetically it happens on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday of next week. 5 days later is the first day we're back from midwinter break.
No sooner than the first.
So that's where item 3 comes in. So item 3 has to give you some time frames. So it's item 3 would be. So do you want to make a motion about number 2 and?
Oh, okay. Just change it. Okay, yeah, that's a good idea. So okay. So second motion is to change the existing reentry plan regarding 9th and 10th graders from 2 weeks post-read to 5 days.
So really, let me, if I could try.
Mhm.
What we want to do is revise the what would happen if we went into the purple tier language to, if we went into the purple tier, it currently says we would pause for 14 days. We're going to change it to 5 days. So we would change the, what would happen if we pause reentry language from a 14-day pause to a 5-day pause.
Ellen, you got that?
This is all recorded, so she can go back. And get it.
Okay.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
Yeah, got it.
So this moves restart of high school to a 5-day
From 14.
delay from a 14-day, which is basically bringing it in compliance with the standards.
Right.
Do we have a motion to that effect?
Well, I'll motion.
Greg made
I'll second again.
trustee Marie, and all in favor, including student trustees. So I see 3 hands over there. I do, all 3 student trustees and 7 of us in the room.
So Chris, before we go to the third part, I don't think we need to really motion what Elizabeth said because the law is there.
No, we don't need to. I
Right,
would agree.
okay. So Elizabeth, you're good. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, trust us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now, Chris, part 3. What were you going to say?
So part 3 is going to just help us navigate the midwinter break.
Right.
So part 3 is if we transfer to the red tier prior to 2:10 at 5 o'clock, then 9 and 10th grade will return on 2/22.
Yep.
Okay.
If we transfer to the red tier between then and during the course of midwinter break, then we would bring 9 and 10 back to hybrid learning on 2/29.
March 1.
3-1.
Sorry, March 1. Thank you.
Mhm.
And I think that's good for that.
Okay, so do we have a motion to that
Okay.
effect?
Do we need to re-say it or?
No, I don't think so.
Someone else want to make the motion? I'll be happy
Greg,
to.
trustee Mack makes the motion. Trustee Aguilar makes the second. All in favor, including student trustees. Are you guys on board over here? I see 3 hands. There we go. Okay, and 7 in the room. So there we are.
And I would think that we should probably consider, and I don't know if it's necessary, but one last one, which would be that 11th and 12th graders would return 1 week after the 9th and 10th graders.
Okay.
I'll move that.
Okay, there we go.
Well, but it's.
No, let's
Is
make
the
a
language in
motion.
the current plan saying 21 days or a week later?
It says a week later.
Does that cover us?
I don't know.
Well,
That's why I asked.
just
If
be safe.
you feel like it's important, you can add it. If you don't,
Let's be safe. 11th and 12th graders will enter hybrid a week after the 9 and 10.
Okay, so moved.
Moved.
Second, yes or no?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you.
And now clarity on the week.
No.
Is it 7 days of?
1 week.
A week is
1
7
week.
days.
Calendar week.
Is it 7 days of a week for a calendar?
Yes.
School.
1 week.
Seven calendar days. 1 week.
Monday
No
to
matter how
Monday,
you define it,
Tuesday
if
to
it's,
Tuesday.
that's what we've said. If you want to change that, we can change that. But what we've said all along is it would be 1 week after. Yep.
Okay, all in,
Because I think we'll probably start on Monday.
we have a motion and a second. All in favor? And including student trustees? Jada, there you go. Good. Three student trustees and 7 of us in the room. Is there anything else we need to do on this item?
We just need to.
Oh, and one more thing. It's not a motion. You're coming back on the 3rd with
Exactly.
a discussion of where we are. And
Yeah,
if you're planning going forward, you're going to bring forward, because there were dates beyond January, March 3rd.
March 2nd.
There's dates beyond that we set March 2nd dates here.
No, we didn't
March.
set any dates beyond March
Right.
2nd.
We didn't.
However, it could be because we don't know when we're going to come out of.
They
we
might
don't know
roll.
when we're going to come out of the purple tier.
But we're going to get a conversation from you about
I
what
can give you an
happens.
update on reentry on March 2nd.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
And that could say, hey, we brought everybody back. This is how it's going, et cetera.
We're moving in the direction of more school.
Is that report going to include more information on converting hybrid to full time?
We didn't make.
So I think we need to be careful with how we navigate that, as some of what you're going to be talking about is being negotiated. So I think I will bring what I can bring, but I think that if it's not a good practice for us to talk about things that are going on in closed session and open session. So it depends on where we are in the process.
But it is a good practice to be open and transparent
About our intentions.
What we're having to do
So
to get to that stage.
So here's what I can tell you about our intentions. I can make it clear right now. Our intentions are to get all our kids back to full on-campus learning this spring, and our intentions are to get all of our kids to full on-campus learning in the fall.
Perfect.
What I can't tell you in March is where we are necessarily in that process, because we could be negotiating. If you want me to do that and to violate that best practice, I can do that, but I wouldn't suggest it.
We won't move forward faster if we don't follow process.
We're just trying to make clear to all the people watching that that's our intention.
I understand.
Okay. And even if there's like an individual, get more.
Okay.
Okay.
I think we're done with this item.
Thanks, Chris.
Superintendent, do you have anything more you want to
No,
contribute to this?
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. So this was item 13B. And now we're moving on to 13C, which is Nevada Federation's Nevada District Initial Mutual Proposals for Negotiating 2021. And Jonathan Ferrer is going to be our presenter for this item.
Thank you, President Miller. Greetings, trustees. Jonathan Ferrer, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources. Before you is a recommendation to approve the 2020-2021 mutual openers of negotiations between the district and the Nevada Federation of Teachers, NFT. As you may recall, in our previous regular bargaining agreement with NFT, both sides may submit up to 2 non-monetary openers for this school year. As such, the openers for this year's negotiations for the regular bargaining process are as follows. Article 7, work year. Article 8, professional responsibility. Article 10, evaluation. Article 11, transfer. Should you approve this item, the district and NFT may commence negotiations for this school year. The district recommends the approval of the 2020-2021 mutual openers of negotiations between the district and NFT. I can hear feedback or take questions at this time. Thank you.
Any questions, or do we want a motion?
So moved.
So moved by Trustee Butler, seconded by Trustee Mack. All in favor? Student trustees, this is a negotiating item. 1, 2, 3, and 7 at the board table here. Okay, there you go. Jonathan, you have the next item as well, item D, approval of employment agreement, interim assistant superintendent.
I do. Thank you again, President Miller. Greetings, trustees. Jonathan Ferrer, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources. Before you is a recommendation to approve the employment agreement for interim assistant superintendent, business and operations. As you know, assistant superintendents are contracted employees with their contracts presented to you for approval. Our current assistant superintendent of business and operations is resigning from the district effective February 26th. The district thanks and appreciates Yancey Hawkins for his leadership and service and wishes him the best in his next professional endeavor. In order to ensure a smooth transition and continuity of business and operational services and leadership, and as we await the selection of a permanent assistant superintendent of business and operations, the district recommends Laura Fan be appointed with your approval to the position of interim assistant superintendent, business and operations for at least through April 30th, 2021, effective March 1st, 2021. The contract may be extended by mutual agreement if necessary. Ms. Fan is a recent retiree who has extensive leadership with business and operations, serving in many assistant superintendent roles throughout the Bay Area, and comes to us highly regarded by school finance colleagues. The district has begun its search for a permanent assistant superintendent of business and operations. We are in the process of accepting applications and anticipate interviews and a selection recommendation to you at the end of March. We would then work with that candidate on an immediate start date if possible. As we have budgeted for salary for this position already, this is a cost-neutral recommendation. The district recommends the approval of the interim assistant superintendent business and operations agreement. I can hear feedback or take questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any public comment on this item? Hearing none. Board discussion on this item?
I'm prepared to make a motion to accept the staff's recommendation this individual comes highly recommended and I think fits our needs temporarily very well. So I will move.
Moved by trustee Nell. Do I have a second? Trustee Jacobson. All in favor? The student trustees? 1, 2, 3. Ava, Jada, Elizabeth, thank you very much. Okay, we're on to item staff reports. Item A, mid-year district goals. Superintendent Koska will present. I believe he's back at his desk. Yes, he is. Superintendent Koska, the floor is yours.
Hi there. Thank you. All right, happy to walk you through an update on where we are with our 2021 district goals for NUSD. We really have 5 key goals. 3 of them are particularly instructional in nature. This is to work on our culture of caring, our culture of competence, and our culture of excellence. Additionally, we have 2 goals of fostering trust and ensuring fiscal responsibility. So one key thing for us to keep in mind as we navigate this challenging year is that we didn't drop everything and do COVID. We still had key district goals that we needed to move forward on and achieve. And we've made really great progress towards a vast majority of those goals, especially the ones that were within our control. And I'm exceedingly proud of NUSD, the team's efforts through the pandemic. So this is, our classified staff, our certificated staff, primarily our teachers and other members of NFT, our management team, both classified and certificated, and the board, who's had to take significant challenges over the course of this year. So we've had some great successes. We kept our community safe through the pandemic. I think that's the most important one, while also making progress on reopening our schools. We've had over 3,500 students on campus each week. That's the most of any district in Marin County. And we have had 1 potential case of on-campus spread as determined by Marin County Public Health. We added the Virtual Learning Academy that at any point in the year has served between 10 and 17% of our student population. And we adopted a reentry plan on October 6th, prioritizing those with the greatest need and getting them back onto the campus first. And we started when we believed we could safely do so. And then we hit the spikes. Unfortunately, skyrocketing COVID rates following our community members choosing to not follow the guidelines, state and local guidelines around gatherings, around Halloween and winter holidays. They resulted in us pausing our plan for 7th through 12th grades. And as shown tonight, reentry continues to be a heavy burden that we all carry in this community. I do believe it's very important to note that we are in the minority. NUSD is in the minority of California school districts with students on campus. I know that based on the feedback we've heard from roughly 100 parents over the last couple of weeks, it isn't sufficient for them. But as I mentioned a few minutes ago, every county that we touch here in Marin County is almost entirely closed to every public school student. And I know we shouldn't set the bar at that place, but I do think it's important to note that we have the majority of our students on campus in hybrid learning. So again, 3 key instructional goals: culture of caring, competence, and excellence. When we talk about culture of caring, what we are talking about is making sure that we foster and maintain positive parent, student, and community engagement while promoting a safe, inclusive, restorative, and well-maintained campus. This is the language from our district goal documents. So to make sure that we are doing our best to address the mental health and social and emotional development, we have continued to make sure that our students have access to counseling, behavioral support systems, staff supports. We've continued to maintain student and staff recognition awards, and we've really done our level best to make sure we're committed to the supports that our kids need, knowing that, the mental health of our children is a societal problem. It's not simply a school's problem. We do not have the resources to provide all of the mental health needs of the children in our community. Yet we continue to do the best we can with very, very limited resources. I talked a little bit about the second bullet here. We've continued to partner with our school-based mental health staff, our community-based mental health partners, our restorative practitioners, our community liaisons to make sure that we're connecting our families with the supports that we have or that we can connect them with outside of our district in our community. We continue to feed our students. We've served approximately 25,000 meals a week to our students. We've served well over 500,000 meals during the time of COVID. All of that comes down to a culture of caring. When we talk about culture of competence, these are the interventions and articulated systems we have to support students in the areas of behavior, academics, and social emotional well-being. Again, when we talk about the proficiency scales, we talk about essential standards. We've realized long ago that the state of California always has too many standards in any given subject area at any given grade. And so we've made sure that we have worked with our teachers to determine what are the most essential standards in each grade and each content area, and then develop proficiency scales that help to measure the level of proficiency for students in those essential standards. Then what we do based on student performance, on those proficiency scales, we have multi-tiered systems of supports to provide a support for students when they need extra support. When we built our remote and hybrid schedules, we made sure that we designed them to give students opportunities to get extra support. So our English learners, for example, our resource students, they have extra time set aside to get that support. Additionally, we've partnered with different agencies to make sure that they have learning hubs and afternoon office hours to get additional support as students have needed it. Culture of excellence is giving the students the opportunity to demonstrate mastery in their different subject areas so that they can be successful in college, career, and life. So the way we do this, we make sure that we're looking at performance-based education strategies. We've done a lot of professional development with our teams, most of that driven by our teacher leadership team, supported by our education services team. We need to make sure that all of our students have the skills, abilities, and knowledge necessary to, as I said, be successful in college, career, and life. And so to do this, we make sure that we've had high quality instructional strategies provided by our high quality teachers and using best practices. So, we have shortened days. The state has allowed school districts to shorten the days this year. That's something that we have done. And so we need to make sure that we're using each of those minutes as wisely as possible. We've also adopted learning management systems at the different levels to help students, parents, teachers track assignments and performance, et cetera. And then we've provided high quality instruction of curriculum and supported that with PD, as I mentioned earlier. So fostering trust, this is an ongoing challenge. This is not just a Novato challenge. This is an ongoing problem both here and beyond. And so, we continue to do our best to communicate. Sorry, I'm a little stuck here. We're doing our best to communicate with our weekly newsletters, our different outreach, our social media, being accessible, responding to emails, all those things. It's obvious that there's a lot of uncertainty, stress, feelings of loss and powerlessness out there in our community. And we are hearing about that from our community and doing our best to respond. One of the biggest challenges we face is, the relationship between NUSD and NFT. Clearly, that's a strained relationship. We continue to work with NFT to determine what the best way is for us to get some conflict mediation around that and move it forward. And we've been, appreciative of NFT's efforts on this front, and we will continue to work to find the right partner to help us move through that. I talked a little bit about the weekly communications that we do. One of the things that I do is I try to be as visible as I can by attending regular community meetings, and some examples are two different Novato-related PTA leadership meetings that I am present at monthly, always present for our school fuel meetings, in the Novato Chamber Government Affairs Committee, and then speak at site PTA meetings like I did at like I will do Thursday night at Lou Sutton. And then working with our communications team around a new committee to help us refine our communication strategies. That's the communications engagement team. The final big goal, if we aren't fiscally responsible, we can't meet the instructional needs of our students. And, we were very worried initially about the 2020 budget, made some significant budget reductions prior to the year to help us make sure that we were in an okay place fiscally. We're very pleased to say that we've gained some fiscal relief through some one-time federal dollars, also some one-time state dollars. And so while this year is going to be comfortable and next year is going to be fairly comfortable, if we make some wise decisions, we still have some fiscal challenges on the horizon, particularly in the 22-23 school year. So in order to demonstrate fiscal responsibility, we said that we were going to do some key things. We were going to come to the board with some difficult decisions. We've done that. We've cut a couple $1 million from our budget to make sure that we maintained a balanced budget. We are working to build our current and future budgets to ensure balance. We're exploring opportunities to expand revenue sources. An example of that would be something that you're going to see as a board, I believe, at our next meeting, which is an expanded contract with Comcast for them to provide us very high-speed internet in exchange for an easement across some of our land at Sam Wren. This is a long-term agreement that we've had in place. We just got a 10-year extension. We believe that extension is worth over $2 million in services. And then finally, we brought a long-term reserve policy to the board. So I mentioned a couple times that we made some significantly hard decisions in reducing our budgets for this school year. NUSD will have a balanced budget this year. This is the third consecutive year that we will have had a balanced budget. It's very likely that we will have a balanced budget in 2021 through some staff balancing that we'll need to do. And of course, this is barring any unforeseen changes. We're living in a fairly unpredictable time right now. There are significant challenges ahead in the 22-23 school year. And those challenges typically come down to two key things. One of them is the hold harmless for enrollment or for ADA. So essentially what the state is doing is the state is giving NUSD funding based on the 2019-2020 school year enrollment. This year, they will continue to do the same next year. So our revenue will be based on the 2019-20 school year enrollment next year. However, that ends in 2022-23. So we will actually see the impact of 3 years of declining enrollment hit our budget in the 22-23 school year. Additionally, the governor has paused some increases to pensions to STRS and PERS, which is the pension that all of us in education pay into and receive upon retirement. Those pauses start moving forward again in the 2022-23 school year. So that'll present some fiscal challenges to us again. I mentioned that we brought to the board a reserve policy that you passed. We are currently in the process of conducting a 7-Eleven committee, which is essentially a property use committee that's looking to make sure that we are using all of our facilities, all of our properties to the best advantage of the district, reviewing the potential of school closure, the potential of leasing land, the potential of selling land, developing land, potential of teacher housing, a lot of very, very key topics. One other thing we're doing to help us be fiscally responsible is we're exploring a renewed contract with Target River. This was a marketing firm that we worked with for a couple of years. They did help us to boost enrollment. We paused that contract as we made these $2 million in budget, and as we saw that there wasn't really much we could do to boost enrollment during the time of COVID, so we paused that contract. We'll be meeting with Target River again soon, and should we choose to recommend bringing that forward, we'll bring that forward to the board. And then finally, we are conducting a survey of students who have left NUSD during COVID to determine their interest in coming back to NUSD, or if they're planning on staying in whatever learning environment they find themselves in currently. One more thing that I could add here is that we intend to continue with the Virtual Learning Academy into the future, assuming that there's interest in the community, and that community could be our local community next year as we run the program in 21-22. But in 22-23, we could explore having that be a revenue generator by allowing students from outside of NUSD to participate in our Virtual Learning Academy. While this wasn't one of our specific goals called out, we've made some significant strides as it pertains to social justice and equity. Really proud of the employees of color group that Assistant Superintendent Ferrer has pulled together with some of our just really amazing educators that we have in our system. As a result of that work, we are now piloting an ethnic studies course right now. We have teachers teaching it at multiple high schools. We have our Ed Services team is revising our equity imperative, also in partnership with the employees of color group. We had, through students, an effort to draft the anti-racist education resolution that then was also on a parallel track being worked on by the employees of color group. We have brought that forward to the board, and it was passed at our last board meeting. And now we're already taking actions to implement that. We've taken, Assistant Superintendent Ferrer is continuing to work with that team to improve work conditions for our current educators of color. The reality is we do not have enough educators of color in our district. Our students, whether they be white students or students of color, all benefit from having more educators of color in their worlds. And so we are working to increase that number. But what we've also realized is that over time, we also have a hard time retaining the educators of color that we do have. And part of that is due to the work conditions here in Novato. And so Assistant Superintendent Ferrer is working with that team to improve work conditions. And then we're also learning from this team how we can better recruit educators of color. I mentioned student voice. They were a key part of us passing the anti-racist resolution. Additionally, we've been doing great work, and you've heard that voice. We've honored that voice of our student trustees to make sure that it isn't an honorary position, but it's actually a position where we listen to the voice that they have, where we honor that voice, and where we give them the opportunity to vote on these items, even though their vote doesn't count as it comes to a quorum for the board. We continue to review our school resource officer program. I'm proud of the work that our high schools have done to collect student perspective, and we're working to arrange the community input gathering sessions. And then finally, one of the things that we were almost done with when we hit the pause in March of 2020, when we went to remote learning, was our equity audit that we were completing in partnership with Education Trust West. And now we are reconnecting with them to make sure we finalize that work in service of our students. So with that, I will turn it over to questions. And President Millerick, I'm open to either being in here or heading out there. Really, whatever the board's.
I think we're okay. I think this is questions for the superintendent. Trustee Mack.
I'll be quick. Hey, thank you, Chris. I want to say two acronyms that I'm very excited about: PBE and MTSS. Wonderful stuff. It's kind of a shame in one respect that we introduced this in a year of COVID, but in the other respect, thank goodness we did, right? Because it allowed us to be more flexible. I'm really looking forward to us being able to deploy these very important proficiency-based education and multi-tier systems of support in a normal year, when we can actually see what they do, because it's really important to what we're doing to, I don't want to put too much on this, but reinvent the way we teach to our kids in a way that teaches them, that works with them rather than just standing up and desks all lined up. But anyway, I'll leave it at that. It's great stuff.
Other trustee comments, questions? Trustee Nell, and then student trustees, any?
Actually, I'd kind of like to hear the students, if you don't mind.
Well, I don't see any hands in there. I don't know, man.
Well, I was just going to weigh in support of the update. I mean, it's Trustee Mack stole some of my thunder on his excitement around multi-tiered systems. I forget what the second S is for right now. And I'm also think the learning management system is important. I think and I appreciate the fact that you spent time on fostering trust. I really think this is an issue, a cultural issue that's broader than just our community right now. And I mentioned earlier about how the audit is an example of how we now have agreed upon facts to work from, but there's so much more work to do in this area. And I just think that as an education operation, that it's a big part of what we do is educating people, getting the information out there. And I think that having a focus like that is important. So I appreciate the superintendent making that goal a focus. Obviously, we can do very little of this without being fiscally responsible. And you went through the list, and I think we're probably at this point doing the best that we can in that area. And we are thinking about the future and in not only ways that we might trim a little more, but come up with some additional revenue. There just is a little bit new, but there is some ideas floating around Sacramento that there might be legislation that would extend hold harmless attendance through another year based on the uncertainties of COVID. And I think that would be something I think everyone could get behind as far as getting the legislature.
If I was going to Sacramento tomorrow, I'd sure talk about
governor. So it's basically a new idea that's just begun to surface, and I'm sure that the superintendent would be supporting anything along those lines. But and then I also kind of just think the social justice, bringing that up is important. You mentioned the ethnic studies class. I took ethnic studies in the 70s, so it's really sad that we haven't been able to provide this elective sooner, in my opinion. But the very fact that I'm calling it an elective means it requires a resource. And I know we're going to say that we shift this around and that around, but Martin Luther King said, you show me your budget and I'll show you your priorities. And so if we're going to spend teachers' time, FTE, and resources in creating classes like ethnic studies, I think that's a good idea. But again, it still requires us to expend resources. So very proud of the work that was done here, and I think the superintendent deserves a great deal of congratulations and respect for the work that's been done and the work that he plans to continue doing. So thank you, Chris.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And the reality is that my work is the work of the team in the district. So couldn't do it without the team. So thank you.
So one.
Or unless there's not someone else, I don't want to interrupt anybody. But
go ahead. I got a few comments, but I'll go after you.
Chris, I want to say thanks for adding the social justice and equity slide that Derek referenced. I think it's really important, especially after what we heard in public comment today. It shows to me that this issue is by no means dead in this town. And I want to say a really big thank you to all of our students who are putting their neck out there to deal with this ugliness. And that was ugly.
Yeah, we did.
And you know, and we weren't allowed to say anything, but I'm saying it now. That was ugly. I don't want to see it again. But thank you.
So the reality is our students are Elizabeth and Jada and Eva are going to grow up in a much more diverse society than I grew up in. And that's the world that we live in, and that's where the opportunity is. And that's, if you can't operate in that environment, when I go to work, I end up with a multicultural group, and that wasn't the case in my younger years. And this is pretty exciting, and it's the future of the world. I would like to, Chris, make one thing that one point towards one item that you covered. All of the work we're learning to do by being able to teach remote and our VLA, our virtual learning environment, the attempt and the plan to capture those skills and then have a VLA operation so students other parts of Marin can come to school in Novato virtually, just like our current NOVA program, but upscaled and a more effective solution, I think, is a huge opportunity for us. There's many basic aid districts to the south of us that don't lose a penny if they lose a student, and in fact, in some cases, would encourage them to leave if they would come. But Novato is not that case. We get paid for every student we serve, and if we can do a better job and provide them more opportunities, we'll be the go-to school district in Marin County. And I'm excited that you've got that vision, Chris, and I'm glad to see it in the plan as one of the things you're focused on. With that, I think we're at the end of comments, and we're going to move to the next. Diane, do you have some comments? No, everybody? So I think we're done. So this is just the staff report, so we don't need to adopt it. The next item under staff report would be item B, Measure G Bond General Program Overview, and then there'll be a second Measure G item. So Mike Willard's going to be our presenter for the next two items, and then we're done for the evening. Mr. Willard, I see your smiling face. I don't hear your smiling voice.
Does he think he's talking?
No, if you're talking, we're not hearing.
I was trying to work on the list.
There you go. There you go.
My apologies. Thanks, President Ulrich. It's always nice to end the meeting with some bond discussions. Two quick staff reports for you tonight.
One point of view.
Based on previous feedback from the board, wanted some additional information regarding the program itself, kind of where we're at with financials of the program, and then a little more specific information about some projects. Decided to not overwhelm you with a lot of spreadsheets and information tonight, so I kind of took a two-step approach. Tonight, I'd like to give you sort of the program overview, which sort of lets you know how we're doing as the overall program. With the bond, with the overall money, kind of where it's going by allocation, on some recent decisions that the board has made. And then the next step, which I would present at the March 2nd board meeting, would be the specific project financial update. How much is spent per project, what's completed, what's not, what's still in the works, and what's coming up per board approval, and then what's left for the board to decide upon. So with that, I'll jump into the first one, or the first step, and I can find it. Can everybody see the screen?
There it is, Measure G Bond, General Program Overview.
This time I finally got it right. So tonight, again, just want to give the overall summary of the program and how we've sort of morphed into this allocation process, and then dive into the specific allocations to give you more details of where the money's gone, basically per allocation. And basically at the end of this, I want to leave you with, here's the amount of money per allocation that still requires board approval for specific projects that we have left to do. And then, of course, answer any questions. And again, knowing that I'll come back next month with the detailed project information and financial information per project. So with that, jump into a slide you've seen a couple times before. This is sort of how we tried to explain how the program is going. We had a phase 1 that was projects before June 2020 and a phase 2. Realized this was kind of confusing to folks, and since you've already approved our allocation process, I decided to convert this into just one giant table for allocations and give you a complete overview. So did that with this table. I just got rid of unique things and we put those in the allocations as you previously approved. So the money that you've seen is the same. One thing I think you'll notice as we go down through the allocations is now the Measure G bond total allocation is over $220 million. How's that possible, you might ask? Well, Yancey can give the more details, but apparently when you sell millions of dollars of bonds and you don't spend it all at once, it sits in a bank and it earns some nice interest. And we've received some interest for this program. And in fact, we've come to you and gotten your approval to use some of that interest as a contingency for some projects that required additional funding. So as you can see, you've approved $2.6 million already of that interest that sits in program contingency to give our total up to about $224.6 million. And specifically, you've approved the use of that contingency for 2 projects, transferred money to the Center for the Arts project at Novato. We used $350,000 of that, and we used the $2.25 million of that to go to the San Marin High School athletic fields project that's coming up this summer. So of the total interest of $2.895 million, we still have $295,000 or $296,000 left in our program contingency. That is as of the interest payments received at the end of September of 2020. I believe we get them quarterly or somewhere in that frequency. So as we get more, that number updates, I will keep the board posted. But as you can tell, we've got about $20 million of money that we have not come to you with specific direction for specific projects. We have $16 million in the middle school allocation, which is my second presentation tonight. I'll get you some more details on that. We have $3 million left in the elementary school allocation. You had you have directed us to hold that as a contingency for the Olive and Linwood projects that are going on the summer of 21. And if we don't use any or all of that, we will come back to you with some other recommendations on how to expend that in the elementary school program. And we also have $1 million in our other allocation that we haven't come with any recommendations to the board as well. So with that, I'll dive into just specific allocations to give you some of the details on the projects. So district-wide, this was our furniture, classroom toolkit, the work we did for the grounds maintenance and operations, new building we built at C Street, the fans renovation at the Olive Avenue warehouse, and the air conditioning projects that you've approved. So we did, excuse me, we've completed San Jose in 2018. We just recently did Loma Verde, Linwood, and Olive Elementary Schools in 2019. We actually went back in 2020 to do the front office at Loma Verde due to an issue where it got pulled out of the original project. Remaining campuses in the district that do not currently have AC and are scheduled to get AC per your approval of a $7 million allocation are parts of Novato High School, the Hill campus, and Lou Sutton and Rancho Elementary School. So we're down to 4 campuses left that do not currently have AC, or in the case of Novato, it has a few, but most of the campus does not. And we have that $7 million allocated to begin those projects in the next 2 years. It's about almost $26 million for that allocation. Oops, sorry. Deferred maintenance. This is a rather busy slide, but we've got about a little over $51 million so far. We've used in this one, or dedicated to this one, and we've used about 17 million of that so far with the projects you see up here. I'm not going to go through each one. We still have about $34 million in this allocation, still for projects you previously approved that we are going to get to in the next 5 or 6 years here. But all said and done, about $51 million in that allocation. Moving to the high school allocation, a good chunk. We have our 4 biggest projects, obviously the STEM and PAC building at San Marin and the Center for the Sciences and Center for the Arts at Novato take up a large portion of this. We also did public address system, which was part of the football stadium project. And then we also have the 2 field complexes, Novato we just finished, and Sandman, which we'll do this summer to get us out to that just over $78 million so far in that allocation. Moving on to the middle school allocation. Again, this is the one I will present here in the next couple of minutes to give you a little more information and timelines on that. But you've approved a $2 million kitchen renovation at Sinaloa Middle School. And from that 18 million original allocation, we now have 16 million left. And we'll move forward with that over the next 6 to 8 months to get detailed projects to you and hopefully approved so we can get those in action. And then the elementary school allocation was about 26 million. It included the 2 modernization projects at Linwood and Olive. Also included that new administration building at Olive. And the kitchen at Linwood is still in there. It's just part of the modernization piece. Also included another new kitchen at Pleasant Valley Elementary School. And we still have that 3 million left. You also agreed to transfer $1 million to our furniture allocation for the district-wide furniture purchase, which left us with 3 million that's still there. And upon completion of the 2 modernization projects, summer 21, we'll come back with recommendations on what to do with that remaining $3 million if it's not needed for contingency. Moving on to IT infrastructure, almost 13 million here. We did our 2 site upgrades at the high schools. We are currently doing Linwood and Olive and their modernization pieces, and then we're moving ahead with 5 sites this summer in 21 as well to do that. And we'll still have a little over 6 million left to do the remaining school sites, including the charter school and the district office as well. And just give you a summary slide of all these numbers I just threw at you. Basically, we have a little over $20 million that you've allocated to middle school, elementary, other, and in our contingency that still will require your approval on specific projects as we mature those portions of the program. Biggest one obviously is middle school. We'll be doing that over the next 6 months, getting you more information to give you a plan to approve in specific projects as we work with sites to figure out what they would like and combine that with some of the needs that we see. We still have that other allocation that was for the charter school and C Street and some other catch-alls we need to do some work on. And again, we have our program contingency is about 300,000, and we'll hope to grow that as we get more interest payments. As you know, we just sold our 3rd bond series, which is a little over $100 million, $115 million. So we'll be getting some interest on that. That will continue to grow that contingency pot in case we need it for some projects to go over. But I'm sure you all have been paying attention. I guess a silver lining to COVID is the construction market has been super, super competitive, and it's actually been driving some prices downward. The trend is, so we're hopeful to take advantage of that over the next year or 2 before the market corrects itself. So hopefully we can save a little bit of money on some of these upcoming projects. But all in all, I wanted to leave you with of the 222 million original program plus the interest earned to date. The board has approved and allocated most of that, and we still have just a little over $20 million remaining to come back to you to get more specific approvals for specific projects. So with that, I know that was really fast, and I apologize. I'd like to open up any questions or comments you might have.
Questions from Trustee Gasson and then Trustee Mack and then Trustee No. Mack, Gasson and Mack.
Hey, Mike, thank you very much for doing this and pulling all the little tidbits together that shows a lot of information that I had originally asked for. I guess the only question I have left, and you sort of answered it, but I'm finding it hard to process. I was expecting that our construction costs would still be going. Are you there? Is he there?
I'm still here. I'm sure you can still hear you.
3 minutes,
Yeah.
Diane. That our construction costs would be going up. So because you're saying it's so competitive, is there just not a lot of work going on? Is that why?
Exactly. A lot of places gosh, can't talk tonight. For example, in the city of San Francisco, when they shut down the city and schools, they also shut down a lot of construction sites. And early on in the COVID crisis, we had a lot of extra workers, if you will, that wanted to either speed up the current construction schedule or put more hands on deck to try to get more efficient and effective. But that trend's continued as the longer this COVID crisis has been around. And we're finding out now, as an example, when we went out for our leaseback contracts for the summer 21 projects at Sanborn High School and for Linwood and Olive, we had 9 applicants for one and 8 for another. And if you compare that to the high school projects we did 2 years ago, we went out, we only had 3 and 2 applicants. So you can definitely tell there's a lot more competition, and as a result, the price is actually starting to go down. Materials is a different thing, that it's a hit or miss depending on what factory's been impacted. Some materials are still easy to come by, others have become a lot harder and more expensive, but the construction labor is definitely in a competitive market and trending downward, anticipated for the next year or so.
Okay. And you actually must have read my mind, because my next question was if the materials were, pricey. So thank you. I find it very helpful.
Okay. Trustee Mack.
Thanks, Mike. It's always good to have you at the end because you keep us awake. Sorry to keep you so late. Just a question about Linwood. Just straighten me out. I see 2 line items, one 9.5 million and the other 2.7, something like that. But it says both ES upgrade. It's one of them, I guess, the admin building. Is it just a typo on the line item?
I don't know where you are, but you know what I found is one of.
Okay, sorry, I was scrolling all over the place.
Because I saw the same thing on a deferred maintenance. He has what was originally approved, and then he has an updated. So if you saw it in 2 different places.
No, actually, it's slide 9, Linwood ES modernization 2021, 9.5 million. Right. And then I'm sorry. Then I'll scroll a little bit. Then I think the other slide was. There's 2.75 somewhere.
I think I know your question, Trustee Mack. It's because the overall project is like 12 million, and we basically funded it by 3 different allocations. We got most of it's from the elementary school allocation, which you see here. We also pulled a piece from the IT allocation, and a piece from the furniture allocation, and a piece from the deferred maintenance allocation. It's actually funded by 4 different allocations, and I just showed them in each allocation versus showing it as an overall project cost. So I didn't mean to confuse anybody, but just wanted to keep it as an apples and apples comparison.
So to be clear, though, the Linwood number overall is 12 something?
Yes.
Pushing 13. Okay. And all of that is committed, but not yet started.
Correct. You just approved the contractor for a leaseback contract, and we're waiting on DSA final approval of the drawings, and the contractor is working on his detailed pricing estimate.
Just want to understand it. Thanks.
Any other questions? If not, well, Mike, we can move on to the middle school presentation.
Alrighty.
Good. Thank you, sir. Thank you for the good work on it.
Oh, I love spreadsheets. This one will go a lot faster. So basically, as you saw in the previous slide, we had about $16 million left, and I just wanted to give you sort of a reminder of how we got there, and then much like we did with the elementary schools, kind of show you at the 3 middle schools how much money's already been allocated to them through the other allocations. And to not confuse you, when I show you those individual slides, that money's already approved by you, and the 16 million is in addition to that. So there's another 16 million that you'll approve to parse out based on recommendations to those 3 sites. So the numbers you see on the individual pages will increase. once those decisions are made. And then I just want to give you a little timeline on some decisions that we'll need from the board as we move forward on those middle school projects. So again, actually, for some reason, I thought this project or this presentation was going first, so I would have used the newer slide I had, but the same slide, just the old phase 1, phase 2. It basically shows you we got the 16 million over here that we still need to work with. And again, reminder that we already approved, you've already approved the kitchen at Sinaloa to get us down to that 16 million. So, and again, much like all the other allocations, elementary and high school, you've already approved IT portions, the toolkits, the Wonder Worlds, the furniture, and the deferred maintenance. So all that money is already earmarked for each middle school, and we have an additional $16 million we need to distribute. So going through each school, again, Hamilton School, it's a portion of their overall school since it's a K-8 school. Again, using the last full school year non-COVID CalPADS numbers to determine the distribution for their 6th through 8th grade student population. They've got these numbers, total about 1.4 million that's already been allocated to them for the deferred maintenance and the IT and the furniture. Again, just for the 6th through the 8th grade portions. Moving on to San Jose Middle School, a little bit more, obviously need a little more maintenance work. You've already approved and we've completed the air conditioning project. And then we still have to come do the infrastructure update, the toolkit, furniture, and the Chromebooks are all out, and we're starting into our refresh phase of that program. So for San Jose, we're about $7.5 million. And for Sinaloa, they have about $2 million in deferred maintenance. They obviously are getting that approved new kitchen for $2 million, and then their summary of IT and furniture and Chromebooks, they're at about $6.9 million. So pretty good distribution of funds already at the middle school level. But again, we have that 16 million. We need to figure out what to do. So here's sort of a timeline just to let you know what we're going to come back to you with over the next couple of months. The first thing is we have some ideas on how to sort of allocate it to each of the 3 sites based on the needs at each site. And we are going to bring that to you back in spring of 2021, hopefully sooner than later. As mentioned before, with the construction prices going down, we'd like to take full advantage of that. And if we can get some decisions sooner, we can maybe push some of these projects to 2023 and take advantage of that cost savings. So once we get that approval from you, we'll work with the rest of the school year and into the summer and then start of the beginning of the next school year to work with the sites and get some kind of a committee, if you will, together to help us develop a specific project list for their site. Again, we have some ideas on what's needed, but as you remember from the initial master plan, there was a lot of work that went into what the sites thought was important. We definitely don't want to lose that, and we're going to work with them. So by September of 21, we hope to come back to you with a list. I'm sorry, we have to get the list finalized with the group and then come back to you in the fall. Again, maybe October, to get you to approve the recommended list so we can move ahead and start developing the projects. And again, to get into the 23 construction season of the summer, we need to start getting some schematic design approvals for you in the fall of 22 and work down that timeline where we'd get that to move into the detailed design and award projects to architects and then contractors, and then come back and get ready for the summer 23 construction season. If it's not possible, we would do the same thing for the 24 construction season. So I know we haven't really talked much about middle school in the last couple meetings, but just wanted to give you a little overview and idea of what's coming and what decisions we're going to need from you and when. So again, in summary, by the end of the school year for sure, looking to have some direction on allocations to the middle schools, and then over the summer, right when school starts next year, we will come to you having worked with the site staffs with a list of projects specific for each site for approval for that, so we can continue to march down the road for summer of 22 or 23 construction for those projects. So that said, again, love to answer any questions you might have, and hopefully I didn't confuse you anymore.
Questions for John?
I guess that's my thing. Anything else? No. I guess my question, I mean, I thank you for laying out the timeline. It's helpful to see. It's so funny how time seems to get away though, like 23, 24 by the time you do all the steps. So my question would be, is there, I mean, obviously we don't ever know what's in our future, but if things are less expensive right now, is there any reason we couldn't go faster on some of these things? And
well, for example, for the summer of 21 projects, we're already locked and loaded, and we're working a rather large list now. We just had a meeting last week to move some projects up to the summer of 2022. So we'll be coming to you pretty soon with that list. And I think, given how the process works, and a lot of it's tied up with DSA review, which unfortunately has gone the other way as far as it's longer now with COVID on occasion, most occasions. We're also trying to balance that we're not overloading our staff or our capability of managing a certain amount of projects over each summer. But yes, we're trying to take full advantage, Trustee Gasson, of that reduced price. So it might not be these middle school projects we move up, but we're moving up some other projects to the summer of 22, and hopefully no later than the summer of 23 to take advantage of this kind of drop in pricing.
all right, well, when you do the other thing, I'm sure it'll be sure. I was just looking more. I know that it's hard when we don't have the summer, or when we have the summer break. But so anyway, great. I like seeing like how it's going to progress and stuff like that. So thank you.
Other comments?
Looks good.
I think we're done. So Mike, thank you very much for the work. We look forward to additional information next meeting. I think, does anybody else have any final words? Other than that, we're at the end of the agenda. With that, we're going to adjourn. Thank you very much.